I'd like to welcome everyone to the 93rd meeting of the 7th Council of Municipality of South Dundas. We're having a special meeting today to discuss a few items mainly concerning landfill and waste management in South Dundas. We are meeting in chambers today. I know it might be a bit early according to the rules, but this is a very important subject for South Dundas, and it's felt that council, as long as they're comfortable with it and physically distanced, that we can do this. I know next week we will certainly be back here Monday night, and we'll figure out the logistics of that this afternoon. So since we're all here, we don't need the roll call. Mr. Clerk, any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, we'll move on to discussion items. First item today is we're having Derek Alley from DFA Infrastructure International. He will give us a presentation on the Regional Waste Management Study, which is a roadmap to collaboration.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
We can, Derek. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much for having me this morning. I'm happy to be here to present to you our work that we've completed to date. So if it's okay, I can share my screen with the presentation. And let me know if you can see it.
It's up now, yes.
Okay, great.
And we as councillors do have that in our council package to follow along also.
Okay, fantastic. So there are just a few slides today just to give you an idea of where things are and some of the opportunities that you may have going forward. So in terms of where we are, the study has 4 phases, and we've completed phases 1 and 2, and we are in sort of just getting into phase 3, and then which is the collaboration opportunities, and then phase 4 would be an implementation strategy that comes out of that. So the whole purpose of this exercise is to try and identify some opportunities for the 6 municipalities, including the counties and possibly Cornwall, to work together going forward on waste management, recognizing that, there's some major decisions to be made, particularly around landfill disposal, and also the regulations that have recently been released by the province regarding the transition of recycling from municipal responsibility to the producers of packaging. And that's what that does really is it relieves you of that responsibility as a municipality to look after recycling. Everything will be on the producers as of the transition date for the 6 municipalities. So your current systems, and this is just a snapshot of the 6 municipalities and how waste management is undertaken. And you can see just from this one table that it's sort of a mixed bag of, different combinations and permutations of how waste is collected, recycling is collected, the processing, disposal, and so on and so forth. And what this shows is that, waste collection, for example, it's sort of, half and half, 50-50. That's done in-house by municipal staff and equipment, and the other half is contracted out. And I believe you are contracted out for waste collection and recycling. And you can see on the recycling collection, some of it is bi-weekly and some is weekly. And of that, outsourced and in-house and so on. So there's a lot of similar work that's being done by the municipalities, but how each goes about it is different, as you can see from this slide. The other slide I want to show you is this one, which is, I think, very key to how you approach waste management in the future. And I would draw your attention to this arrow that goes along the middle. It spans, this is intended to give you an outlook for the next 25 years on some of the key things that are happening with respect to waste management. And you would see here, if you look at this middle arrow, there are about 5 landfill sites that will come due for closure or due to be closed in the next, 8 years or so. And of course, one of them is the Matilda site in 2023. And at the time of preparing phase 2, we based our costing on your decision at the time to seek an extension of that landfill site. My understanding is since then there have been some discussions about perhaps converting it to a transfer station and so on and so forth. So these slides and our work to date is based on the assumption that you were going ahead with an extension. So you will see in the graph below the cost related to that. But looking at this slide here, you'll see one issue, of course, is the closure of landfill sites over the next few years across the 6 municipalities. The other is the transition of recycling, which will occur on January 1, 2025. And there's some pre-work to be done by each municipality under the regulations to be submitted to the province. There are a couple of reports that would have to be done. One is by September of this year. The other would be, I believe, by August of 2023. And then, of course, you've got the question of, in terms of disposal, you also have the opportunity to work with the private sector, GFL, of course, that it being the landfill site that's available within the geography of the 6 municipalities. So I have to say, that's a very unique situation. Many municipalities do not have that opportunity, and if they are seeking private sector disposal capacity, chances are they have to haul quite a ways away at a significant cost. So that is an opportunity that you've got that many others do not have. The other point I'd like to make here is that there's also an opportunity to optimize the landfill capacity that's remaining at each of the landfill sites if there's a desire for the 6 municipalities to work together. So on disposal. So the actual mechanics of how that will come about is left to be determined depending on what the municipalities are comfortable with doing in terms of, who's going to be responsible, who's going to take the lead, and that sort of thing. But given the remaining capacities at some sites and the pending closure at others, then there's the opportunity to optimize what's remaining, having regard to the fact that, residents like to have that convenience of drop-off facilities and so on, which can be shared as well between municipalities. So this slide takes a look at your costs, and as I indicated before, it's based on the disposal cost here, which is the red line, is based on a decision at the time of seeking an extension for the landfill site. And you would see here there's some peaks, and those simply represent the phases of development of the new landfill site. It's not going to be done all at once, but certainly, as cells fill up, you're going to have to expand and create the second and third cells and so on and so forth. So over that 25-year period, it's estimated in terms of disposal, it's probably in the vicinity of about $19 million of costs for disposal, and about 11 million of that is, sorry, 19 million of costs for waste management, and of that, about 11 million is really related to disposal, based on this assumption here. You will see also that the green line, which is your recycling, drops off in 2025, and that's simply reflecting the fact that there won't be any, you won't be incurring or have to, under the regulation, incur any costs with respect to blue box recycling. You would still have other diversion, such as leaf and yard waste, any composting, for example, organics, which can be expensive, but certainly those are things that you would still be required to look after. One of the key points here is that given the drop in recycling costs, that it creates some room that you can invest in other means of diversion. So something to consider going forward. Some of the challenges we've identified in the report to date, based on the review of the operations across the board, and these may not, all of them may not apply to South Dundas, but certainly across the board. There are no waste scales at most landfill sites, so actually determining, what's disposed can be difficult based on a conversion. Of course, as I mentioned, there's the diminishing capacity at the landfill sites that, needs to be addressed as a group. And then there's the increasing liability as landfill sites close. All municipalities are required, as you probably know, to report on their landfill liability as part of the financial returns that are submitted every year to the province. And this is a liability that once the site closes, you are at 100% liability with no opportunity to raise revenues to offset that. So it's something to keep in mind that things like monitoring of the closed sites, looking after it, any leachate breakouts, and things of that nature would have to be looked after at the very least for another 50 years or so beyond closure. And in some cases, some municipalities have gone as far as determining potential, the contaminating period of that closed site, and it can be in excess of 100 years, depending on the site. So those are a few challenges. There's also, the financial aspect, which would be the increasing cost of waste management, as everything is going up, and this is no different in terms of municipal services. For those that do provide in-house services, there's the truck maintenance issues, some of these downtime, temporary replacements, and some of the logistics around that. It is also difficult to increase waste diversion without getting into other aspects of diversion, such as organics, which, as I indicated, can be at a relatively high cost. However, there's the opportunity to work with the City of Cornwall on their program that's using organics to generate electricity at the wastewater treatment plant. There's also limited staff resources. I think the only municipality that has a dedicated solid waste group is North Dundas, and all others are shared with Public Works. So in terms of proactively looking ahead for waste management, it's difficult at times due to the competing responsibilities of staff. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just how it is at the moment. And then, of course, you've got the to address all the issues regarding the recycling transition over to the producers. And there's some uh, deadlines, as I indicated, around that. At the end of the day, uh, municipalities are not going to be responsible, but could be, if they so wish, become contracted to a producer. Um, However, that would require negotiation of costs and compensation for, say, for example, if a municipality wished to do collection, they would have to negotiate a contract with the producers to do that collection, and it may or may not cover the cost of service. So that's something that is unknown at the moment, but certainly that is a possibility. I think many municipalities would take the opportunity to simply step away from the recycling, but make sure that the residents are fully informed and that the service that's provided by the producers in terms of collection and so on would be consistent with what is expected or what residents have come to expect over the years. And there's some obligations in terms of the regulation that the producers have to carry that on for a period of time. So in terms of potential collaboration, what we've looked at is and identified is there may be some benefit to working together in terms of public education, communications, particularly around the transitioning of recycling over to the producers, and just sort of collectively planning for waste management going forward. There's also, in terms of waste collection, the opportunity to either, if it's being done in-house, to share resources, to share trucks, have routes cross borders, for example, provide backup services. And if you're contracting out, then there's an opportunity to have joint contracts so that you can benefit from economies of scale. As I indicated, there's the sharing of landfill capacity. This would allow for sharing of drop-off locations, optimizing, maybe have one site in operation that receives, waste from two or more municipalities, over a period of time, and then so it's almost a capacity transitioning sort of plan before hitting the long-term requirement. And then, of course, working with Cornwall Day, preliminary discussions, I have not heard anything back formally, but certainly talking with staff, they're quite interested in working with the 6 municipalities and counties on waste management, particularly disposal and the organics program. And then, of course, there's the opportunity to develop a consistent level of service across the 6 municipalities. And while some of the, many of the services are quite similar, there's some differences in terms of some of the services. For example, how bulky waste is handled. Leaf and yard waste collection can vary, from a couple times a year to, 6 times, or some of them it's just drop off at a particular location and so on. So there's some opportunities there to bring some consistency and provide a bit more convenience to some of the residents. So in terms of working together, how would that, who's going to take responsibility? And there's some options. You can have agreements between municipalities, which, under the Municipal Act, of course, as you probably know, that can be done. There's also SDG taking the lead, and this can be done through sort of a coordinating committee. So responsibility still remains with the 6 municipalities for waste management, but SDG has a role in helping the group move ahead and getting new programs in place and things of the like. The alternative there is to transfer responsibility to SDG, which for the purposes of landfill in particular, it opens up all the landfills to moving across municipal boundaries because all of the landfills would be within SDG's jurisdiction. Whereas if it stays with the 6 municipalities, then special approvals would be required to move waste across municipal boundaries for disposal. And then, of course, you have the partnership with Cornwall for particularly organics and long-term waste disposal in terms of economies of scale, particularly if you're looking to negotiate a contract with the private sector. So, talked about those. So at this point, I think the counties has requested some feedback. There are 4 questions they posed to the 6 municipalities, and we've requested feedback from each municipality. The first question here is, which of the waste management opportunities would be of most interest to South Dundas? And some examples are listed there. Secondly, what information would you need to decide whether to support a regional or intermunicipal collaboration? If there's anything else that, we are not addressing at the moment that you think would be required that you will need to consider. And the third question is if there's any preference of who should lead waste management efforts going forward and coordinating that. It can be a group of municipalities, it can be SDG, it can be a joint committee, and things of that nature. So just your preference on what you think would be, you'd be most comfortable with. And the final question is really, are there any unique circumstances that you believe South Dundas has that should be considered going forward in looking at collaboration? And I think, Mr. Mayor, that brings us to the end of my presentation. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer those at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Derek. We'll go around the table. Deputy Mayor Gardner, concerns on the presentation and perhaps some answers to the 4 questions.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. For me, with this stuff, the benefits of diversion is one of the things that I see we aren't super good at in South Dundas. So when we talk about organics, or even something as simple as wrapping paper. So one of the things that interests me with collaboration is, I've seen other municipalities be able to collect wrapping paper at Christmas time. It's funny, but if you have kids, you could potentially have a couple of bags full of wrapping paper, and to see that go into the landfill site whenever it can't be recycled is really tricky. So for me, when I look at this, there's a couple of things that I want to do or hopefully look at is, have you considered, and I know this came up at the county's meeting, I believe Councillor Mellon brought it up, this scaled incineration. I think for me, if I'm looking at collaborating with the counties and having a unified approach, then I think incineration definitely has to be part of the conversation. And I know people say it's super expensive and they're big sites and stuff, but you can scale to size anything, and I'm curious as to why we haven't had the discussion about scaling it, especially when we're talking about collaborating with Cornwall, and Cornwall doesn't have an incinerator. In my mind, digging a hole in the ground and dumping all our garbage in to babysit for centuries is not the right solution. So I'm just wondering if you can comment on that. Like I said, I know people say the incinerators are expensive, but I also know that they come in smaller versions, medium-sized versions, or whatever. And I'm just wondering if we've looked at the new technology surrounding that and what it would look like. I mean, we're doing it with organics. Basically, we're burning organics and turning it back into dirt. So I'm just wondering if I can have that your feedback on that before I comment further.
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, you are correct that incineration is there as an option. And you're also correct that it's quite expensive. The only one that's really functioning is the Durham York facility that requires a large amount of input material for it to be effective and run efficiently. And I think, when you look at your situation as South Dundas and as well as the counties, the 6 municipalities all together, you're probably talking somewhere around, I think it's somewhere in the vicinity of 15 to 20,000 tons a year being disposed. And if you get into organics or other forms of diversion, then that's even reduced further. So, so the one aspect is, your question is whether or not we looked into incineration and technologies. We did not do that. That's beyond the scope of our remit for this review. This review is focused on looking at what you have in front of you and how best to work together to have programs in the future that would be of benefit to all 6 municipalities. Incineration is definitely something that could be looked at by the group, but it's perhaps not the next step. You've got existing landfill sites that need to be looked after with capacities remaining. And you also have, as I indicated before, private sector landfill capacity that already exists. So there's no, in terms of finding, you know, greenfield sites for a new landfill site or expanding landfill sites, you have that alternative of accessing.
Thank you.
And you quite rightly indicated that you also have the option to look at incineration on the longer term. But our review is sort of focused on the next few years in terms of being able to help increase, what can you do to increase diversion and deal with the regulations that are coming as well as your impending landfill closures.
Okay, thank you. I just, I know at the counties, one of our pillars is innovation, and I just, you're correct, maybe it's not time for that discussion now, but the technology has changed so much. You think that there'd be some advances with waste disposal, but for me, the public education is huge. I think folks just put the stuff on the curb and then they just think that's the end of the story, and there's so much more to the story. In South Dundas, we've recently had to purchase land around seepage, and so their education would definitely be the key. My only concern with the educational component is when you make it a county-wide education, sometimes people forget that they're part of the county and they assume that it's somebody else's problem, like it's SD&G's problem, not South Dundas's problem. So that education would have to be good. I do think that collaboration around diversion, whether it's mattress diversion, I mentioned the wrapping paper, definitely the organics is one that is quite interesting to me about diverting that away, because you are right, it's an organic program is quite expensive. I think that I think you've answered most of my questions, but I just, like I said, if the counties were to take it over, I would want it to be innovative, because I still don't believe shoving it into the ground and just having councils from 20 years from the point you throw it in the ground, then have a big bill to take care of the leachate and that type of thing. I don't know if that's the answer. So, but my thing would be, I'd love to partner and collaborate on the diversion. I think, like I use the wrapping paper as an example, I think that we could have diverted a ton of waste out of our landfill And we did not have that opportunity where other municipalities were able to do that because they had somebody that would purchase the recycled stuff. So I think those are my comments for now, Mayor, and I'll just kind of leave that there.
Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Derek, for your presentation. I don't have any questions. I got a comment, though. I like the idea. I think a lot of municipalities should actually kind of head for the private sector and just get out of the stump business altogether. And by saying that, like have maybe approach GFL, something like that, that would set up a transfer station that they would charge people coming in instead of leaving it up to the municipalities. And just, it'd be a lot less headaches for all municipalities if it was privately ran. Because at the end of the day, we have to pay for it one way or the other. But I think it'd just be a lot easier if the municipalities and townships would get together and maybe hire someone like GFL or Thomason's or someone to, we could provide the spot for them and they could set up house and charge accordingly, and we just take care of the curbside ourselves, or have that go into a contract too. So, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of things we got to get done here. So that's what I would be leaning towards, to privatize it, and we'll go from there. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Lewis?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to thank you, first of all, Derek, for your presentation. I think, you know, I've been on Earth for a few years now, and I think one of the key things is public education. People just, I don't know, they just don't know what they can recycle, what they cannot recycle. So what they do is they just put it in a green garbage bag and set it on the curb and off to the landfill it goes. I do believe that, and I'm not only talking South Dundas, I imagine it's the other 5 municipalities also. Education is a very key thing, I think, today. Diversion, I really like that idea. But I think the most important thing is get education out to the people so they know what's going on and they know what we can recycle, what we cannot recycle, and what can go in a clear bag and what goes in a garbage bag to sit on the curb. I know I've got neighbors around me that don't recycle whatsoever, and I think that's a shameful thing because we recycle every week. I do like the idea of a transfer station, and I think that is most likely the key way that South Dundas should go. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it. I know this year that we did a disposal site, and we got one coming up this fall, and I think it works out great. They take the organic somewhere and they take care of it, and it's a big release off of our skin. But I'd like to thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Mellon?
Thank you, Mayor Byfield. Thanks for the presentation. I sat in on the county presentation. It's very similar to the virtual one back a few weeks, months, whatever it was. At that point, like Deputy Mayor Gardner has already talked about, I asked about incinerators. The collaboration effort I would love to see, and I asked that night that, somewhat of that question, if the counties and the Cornwall could get together, and this will be the $64 question, get everybody on the same page and be the lead in at least exploring our options as far as incinerators go. I mean, the feds, they're pushing green energy and the whole bit, and you know, to me, if we could any collaboration, I think, towards incinerators need to be a unified front. So if there's any funding out there, I think we need to at least explore that. Let's face it, Europe has been doing it. Most of Europe uses incinerators, and by golly, I think, they're maybe not wrong. So, yeah, we're small, but I think any collaboration from the counties of Cornwall, reach out to Brockville, Kingston. I think everybody's going to get into the same problem. I just read an article not that long ago, Ottawa's running out of capacity. And so I think, I would love to see the counties take the initiative and at least explore that. To see if there's any possibility, that, we can find some kind of federal, provincial funding. Obviously, it's an expensive proposition, but if you have enough people on board and you have the right people asking the right questions at the federal and provincial level, you might be able to lobby for some money. One other thing, how much time would you need for any type of collaboration, I guess, as far as any of the programs, anything that we do now? Obviously, we're running short. You go by your graph here, North Dundas is they're seeking expansion, we're seeking an expansion. Some of the other ones are already closed and using private, my I guess, question or somewhat, I have some reservations about trying to get everybody on board with trying to do an overall big picture. But how much time would you think we would need to get a collaboration of everybody in SD&G, or the majority of people in SD&G, and maybe the city of Cornwall, before we would be moving towards, a collaborated effort? Because we're running out of time. Even with our expansion, we'll be on a short time frame. We're kind of I don't know if you can answer that question or not.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's a very good question. I think when you consider what we have left to do on this study, we're into phase 3, and then phase 4 will sort of lay out that timeline. I'm hopeful that we are, we're having this presentation today, and hopefully you can, as a council, can get your responses back to the counties within, a week or two, so that we can consider and I'm making notes as you speak today, that we can consider in the, preparing the collaboration opportunities to, as part of that. So hopefully, if we can get everything done, I would say probably by the end of this year, you can, if the implementation strategy is acceptable to all parties, then you can get going on looking at, looking ahead at how you deal with situations such as the closure of landfill sites in the short term. And this is not thinking about longer term incineration and all that stuff, but just dealing with your obligations that are right in front of you, dealing with the transition of recycling. I know there were some conversations about, what's appropriate for the blue box and so on. One of the responsibilities that the producers will have is to make sure that the public is very well educated on what's recyclable and what isn't. So that responsibility is going to shift to them. But I think certainly the transition and moving from, what you're providing right now to their collection and their, processing and all of that, what's acceptable, that would require collaborative effort by the group to make sure that all the residents understand what's going on, and to sort of keep tabs and make sure that there'll be bumps along the way, but at least to make sure that they are addressed and they kept to a minimum. So I think in the short term, if you look at the short term, the two issues would be certainly looking at your landfill capacity collectively, and also looking at the transitioning of recycling over to the producers. And of course, you also have opportunities sort of in the wings to work with Cornwall on diversion. And they are using new technology. It's very similar to the Toronto's Dufferin facility that converts the gas from the wastewater treatment plant and puts it back into the network, and it helps to run the wastewater treatment plant and all of that stuff too. So there's some financials around that. I'm not familiar with that at the moment, but certainly Cornwall is doing their pilot on that, and they seem to be making some good headway and getting some good results. So there's some opportunities there. You know, we mentioned incineration. That's sort of a form of new technology that could be viable for the 6 municipalities as a group, and others that may be willing to work with Cornwall as well. So I'm a bit long-winded there, but to answer your question in short, I think I would say, you know, if I were to guess, probably by the end of this year, you'd be in a position to start working together, you know, at least see what that roadmap is, and the timelines and the key milestones that need to be achieved in order to address your landfill issues as well as the transitioning of recycling.
Thank you. And according to your graph, I'm not sure what page it's on here, page 6, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm looking at this is the diversion, once 2025 comes along, or I guess that's the year, where reverts back to the producers to pay for that. There's approximately 500,000 in savings, if I'm looking at this right. So, and then it flatlines. So after 2025, we do have the potential of having a $500,000 savings a year. I'm taking. Is that Derek or Shannon, or is that, am I getting that right? Is that what I'm? Yeah. I don't know what the exact numbers are. Yeah, you're estimating around 500,000. If I'm looking at this right, and I get a little apprehensive when I see it flatlining from 2026 through on, because I've never seen anything flatline and anything like that. But anyways, I think that's all. Oh, maybe one other question, if you could, maybe you know, maybe you don't. As far as private landfills, if you will, there's always that possibility, or you're always a little worried that there's going to be increases from year to year, or if you enter into a multi-year contract with them. But what kind of capacity have they got if they start taking everybody's garbage? Because there's more than just SD&G going into, I'm going to say La Flèche, because that's the one I know. And is there any other ones, private landfill operations that you could contract out? Do you have any idea what their capacity limits would be? Hate to get into a situation and find out they're run out of capacity too.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't know what GFL's capacity is, like the entire capacity, but typically those kinds of facilities would be able to accommodate the disposal requirements that you would have. I know I can tell you from experience in Niagara. Niagara is in a similar situation. The Walker's facility is located in Niagara, and what ended up happening is Niagara region has 2 landfills that are operating at the moment of their own, as well as an agreement with Walker's to take in some portion of the waste. So it's sort of a hybrid system. And it's sort of what works best for them, where you still have some municipally owned capacity, as well as sort of optimizing what's available in the private sector. And I guess in their case, the capacity at the Walker's facility was already there, just needed an arrangement, a long-term arrangement to be negotiated. So it wasn't a case of looking for extending a site or creating a new landfill site in a greenfield area or anything like that. So they took that opportunity to come up with a mutually agreeable cost, tipping fee, and that's competitive, and that's what they did. So I think when you look at your situation, you're quite similar in terms of having that opportunity in your backyard, if you will, that you can, as a group, uh, and you can have the GFL facility, and they already have contracts, so it's sort of working. It's not new to them, so you'd be looking at, even working with Cornwall, I suppose, if they're interested in trying, because they also have a limit on their landfill site as well. I think they've got either 12 years or so left, which is not a long time. So I think I don't see any issues. I think you got to talk to them to find out what their capacity is, but I would guess that they would be able to meet your needs over the long term.
Okay.
And just one comment on the recycling. Yes, you're correct that the cost is going to drop by about the 500,000, and that's simply because currently you are mandated to provide that service, and of course there's a cost to it. But once the producers take over, you're no longer required under the law to provide that service. So the only cost you will incur as far as diversion goes would be things like leaf and yard waste collection, or if you get into organics. But anything with the blue box or affiliated with the blue box would be fully the responsibility of the producers after January 1, 2025.
So, thank you, Mayor Bivels. Thank you, Derek.
Welcome.
Okay, first of all, Derek, thanks for your presentation to our council. I know that this is something that started at SDG, but I know all the county councilors at the time wanted to know, come up with some insights on where we all should go on waste management. I will admit that collaboration on waste management or collaboration on anything with the lower tiers tends to be a challenge, as everybody tends to look after themselves, and as long as everything's going good, we don't tend to look forward because of our, the way we work as governments. However, looking ahead is certainly a key, especially in this field. When it comes to collaboration, I do see opportunities. I think we're all, for the most part, challenged with waste, and it becomes a bit easy for our residents just to put it at the curb and it's gone. And however, I think the education is twofold on how they can reduce their waste, along with our residents knowing the actual cost of what it costs for every bag that goes out there. Where we can work together as a county and as Cornwall at this time, I believe, is to work with possibly GFL or another private contractor to come up with a solution that may work for all of us. And if we all go to the table together, it's probably a better way of working with them than if we all individually go there and come up with our own private solution. Rather ironically, that both North Dundas and South Dundas are in a position where our landfills are full or filling. And as much as we all think we can get the expansion, we're going to learn here shortly that the expansion comes with a significant cost, and possibly there's a better way of doing things. And working together might be one of those things that, even from a county point of view, would be, and I'm talking Dundas County point of view, would work out better long term. However, we've never had any of those kind of discussions, and here we are. Do I believe we can do it at SDG? We're a fairly diverse county. For an example, the residents of the village of Iroquois probably would be challenged to find the hamlet of Dalkeith, and I'm talking, northeast versus southwest corner. So it takes councilors sitting at county council to come up with collaborative efforts on how we can go forward. As for incineration, I tend to be the negative Nelly on incineration because of costs, and I've done the research on the Durham facility. It costs a lot for those two regions just to keep that thing going, but from a per capita basis, it probably works out well for them, and they're also doing energy recovery on it. With the City of Ottawa, as Councillor Mellon has alluded to, looking at running out of capacity in the next decade, not this decade, but in the 30s. I see a bigger picture where we can go down the road and have a private contractor work with all of Eastern Ontario to come up with an incineration process if that's where we want to go. Even GFL might be part of that solution considering their location along the 417, and I wouldn't call it central, but certainly something that could be central enough to work with both of us and allow for the haulage to be at least reasonable. I think you've given us some, enough information on where we need to go regionally. We have everybody else's challenges looking at us, so I think we certainly will look at our own challenges and see what we need to do to work with others. And we'll probably go on today when we discuss where we're going with our landfill on how we can work with others and going forward. But it'll be interesting when you get done, Derek, and all your collaborations with the lower tiers and how you see us, how sometimes we think individualistically and sometimes we think collaboratively. I think, as I said, I think the collaboration really comes when you've either A, spending way too much, or B, you've hit the wall and you got to do something. And some of us are at the got to do something stage. Maybe what we do propose today, if it's either transfer station or expanded landfill, will be only a temporary solution. And within the next 10 years, we have to come up with a bigger solution for the whole region. And I believe this something, if you want to do something big, it's got to be regionally thought through. And whether it's SDG Cornwall or Eastern Ontario, I think that's where we need to go long term. Lots of education. I think I would like to take every one of our residents to our landfill and explain to them that this is our big pile of garbage that we've accumulated over a number of years. And this is what it's costing us. And usually my round numbers, it's cost us $1 million to deal with waste in South Dundas. That's a big number. And are we going to reduce that? No, but I think we need to get a little more efficient on how we do it. And I think we've come a few steps forward in the last year, but we as this council need to come up with a solution between now and next year that will set us at least to the in the near term be done with what we need to do. It'll be future councils on how they work together either with SCG Cornwall or regionally to go forward. So my 2 cents worth on that. Anything further from any Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation when Councillor Mellon asked about, mentioned Europe. I actually just Googled it, and it's quite interesting, the municipal incinerators, whenever we talk about scaling down, because the reason why I keep harping on the incineration thing is I've been doing this, I haven't been sitting around this table, but I've been having these conversations for a really long time. And about 30 years ago, I had done a study for a job I was working at where we did all the landfills in Ontario, and at that point they had a 22-year lifespan on average for most of them, and that's 30 years ago. So it's interesting with the incineration thing. I just Googled it, and it's quite interesting how in Britain you can just go and order one, and it's scaled down. It can do, it's got, the capacity is, the chamber volume is 8.7 meters squared, and it gets rid of 1,000 kilograms per hour. So it's interesting that other countries are actually doing this stuff in potentially a better way. And that's what I meant by scaling down, right? They have a construction waste incinerator, they have whatever. I'll send you the website. It's quite interesting. So Britain has decided that they can't just bury the garbage and walk away, that they've got other things. So it's, quite interesting. It's just my comment.
Can't disagree with you. Our challenge here in Canada is we have a lot of land and they don't. And we tend to always thought of finding a hole in the ground. Fully agree. Why were we putting stuff in the
Yeah.
ground? But
Well-
there's a lot of waste sites out there in the country that have no name, no label, and
Yeah.
it's a landfilled over hole in the ground.
But
So,
it's interesting because the mayor at the time, Bob Kilger, had a group of people from Cornwall go to the States to look at their incinerators because they were having garbage problems at that time. And that's the only reason why I kind of bristle a little bit when we're having the same conversation about doing it the same way, because I've literally been sitting at tables where they've talked about doing it the same way forever, and it hasn't been solved. So,
sometimes it's push to shove.
yep.
Councillor Wells?
Yeah, to deputy mayors about the incinerations, they're a great idea, but at the end of the day, our emission controls and what the Ministry of Environment wants us to get to when we get rid of stuff, it's almost virtually impossible to build anything that's going to really do that with all the stuff that they make us do. Like, it's hard to have a small, well, you can have it. It'd be a great thing. I agree with you, but I don't think if it was that easy, people would be doing it. But I think it's the ministry is making it so hard, and that you can't meet their emissions and specs. So that's just my comment on that.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but it costs a lot of money for the scrubbers at the Durham facility to make
Yep.
sure that emission is within tolerances. So it's not cheap. It's not like the burn drum in the back 40. So, any further comments from any members of council? Council Mellon?
I agree. I mean, I can still remember several years ago sitting in the south and running into an individual that was in an incinerator business. He sent me a pile of information. At that time, we weren't really even, talking about it. And the emissions that you can get with these things, they burn so clean now. You're right, scrubbing, takes a lot of any impurities out. Let's face it, regardless of whether you go in an incinerator, I don't know how many years that would take. A new landfill, whether it's us or nobody, is going to take 10 to 15 years to get to that point, plus all the public, if you will, feedback. Yes, there's a lot of land in SD&G, and and you got to have the right type of land and where it would be situated and whatnot. I don't know if that's something I got to agree with Deputy Mayor Gardner. It's the old way of thinking, and and maybe it's the only way to go. But I would sure love to explore all the options, because at the end of the day, money talks and the rest will walk, and we need to know what the numbers are for the possibility, scaled back versions that can be added on. It's going to take 10 to 15 years to get new landfill, probably approval, plus the public feedback, because nobody will want it in their backyard, even though their backyard might be 5 concessions away. But, in the middle of nowhere, we have some land in South Dundas and probably in SD&G. Well, it's maybe not in the middle of nowhere, but you can see nowhere from there. So, yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns, Derek?
No, your mayor. We should. I would like to say that if there are any, when you have your discussions, if there are any questions coming out of that, we'd be happy to, assist with providing you, with responses if you have any questions on the work we've done or are going to do to complete this exercise. We'd be happy to help you with those decisions going forward. And other than that, I have no comments except to say thanks for having me this morning, and hopefully you have some information in front of you that can help with your deliberations.
Well, on behalf of the Council of South Dundas, I'd like to thank you for taking time to give us your presentation this morning. I, as County Councillor, do look forward to your report back to counties. Hopefully, there will be some common ground that we can find as lower tiers that we can work together and go forward on the subject, whether it's this year or down the road. So thank you very much, Derek.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks very much.
So with that, the next one is not a 5-minute discussion, so I'm going to have a 5-minute break right now, and then we'll go into our landfill expansion project. Yes, Shannon?
Just before council breaks, in regards to Councillor Mellon's question about the cost for recycling, right now we're paying $30,000 a month right now for collection, recycling collection. So $360 a year, roughly, is what we're paying right now for recycling. That if the diversion is approved, that will come off our books in 2025. So the next question is just for council in regards to Derek's presentation. There is 4 key questions that he is looking for feedback from council on. So I don't know, Mayor, how you want to go about whether we go through the landfill discussion next and then circle back around to that, and then I can at least provide that to Derek so that they can continue with phase 3 and 4. So.
Yeah, I think we need to know our path forward in the near term, and then we can answer the questions.
Sure.
Immediate and long term, because I think we've all have some input that we've already done, but
Yeah.
how much more we want to do would be something we as council we'll just go through the questions, we'll have input, you can write notes and see if there's some common ground.
Absolutely. Okay.
Okay. With that, 5-minute break, please. Okay, welcome back. Sorry, a little longer than 5 minutes, but always takes more time than you think. So, moving on in our discussion items, the next one is WSP concerning our landfill expansion project. So I'll turn it over to our CEO, Shannon, to lead this discussion, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So as Council recall, we've had some discussions briefly on the direction moving forward when it comes to our landfill site. Williamsburg has been closed and capped. Matilda, we have proceeded with some short-term measures as far as
Better. Apologize. So, as I indicated, is we've done some measures short-term in trying to get more life into our Matilda landfill. That's in regards to doing compaction every day, as well as we have applied to for an expansion that will go above our current pile, which we expect, and we are dealing with the ministry right now on trying to get that approved, which will provide us a few more years till council decides on kind of our more permanent path moving forward. So what looking forward today is WSP will provide kind of an overview of kind of what we've been doing so far, where we're moving, and as part of that we'll look for some direction from council on some of the hard answers we need as far as, you know, do we want to look at a full out expansion? Do we want to look at a new landfill site at another location? Or do we want to look at a transfer station moving forward? And those are things that I think we as staff and WSP needs to move forward, because they do take time. They will invest some funds in order to move forward. So just hopefully to have that good discussion today where council wants to kind of move forward and whether we want to still be in the landfill business. So kind of where we're at right now, and I'll turn it over to Christina and her team, and we'll let them kind of navigate council through this. Because there is some, as you will see in one of the schedules, there is some costs, huge costs as far as which way we want to go. So.
Okay, with that, welcome, Christina.
Good morning. I'm Cristina Olarte. I'm the landfill engineer at WSP, working with Jennifer and Laura on this project. So right now, just to recap, and considering the amount of waste that was being accepted at the Matilda landfill during 2020, the estimated approved capacity at the site is actually being depleted by this year. So that's when the application to increase the capacity of Matilda for 40,000 cubic meters was prepared and submitted to the ministry, which is currently being reviewed. And we have received comments from the ministry. We just submitted a response letter yesterday. So we're hoping that the approval is getting close to being accepted. So right now, in terms of those 40,000 cubic meters, will provide approximately 4 to 5 more years of remaining capacity at the site, based on the current 7,300 cubic meters of waste. In terms of the options that have been contemplated for future, is to expand the landfill by 100,000 cubic meters. So the way that this will work is based on the current footprint of the landfill. It will require a horizontal expansion, and vertical, it will be maybe likely a mixture of both. The things about moving forward with the landfill expansion is the consideration for the leachate management. So right now, yes, that has been one of the issues, getting more gas lands to be able to mitigate those impacts. So by having a larger landfill, this might likely trigger implementing a leachate collection system, or acquiring more land to be able to mitigate those impacts. In terms of approvals, this will trigger a full EA, which, as you previously has discussed, this can take about 5 years just to be able to go through the process of putting together all the supporting documentation, the um, public meetings, and then once you get the approval, prepare the applications to get the amendments certifications, and then put together the tender documents to actually expand the site. So this is a big undertaking. Right now, with having the landfill being expanded by that amount, that can guarantee at least base another 15 years of additional capacity for the site. The other option that was contemplated was the establishing a transfer station at the site. So for this one, different options were contemplated in terms of what, and we can discuss these ones in more detail about having a building on site, having just a retaining wall, and having the waste being dropped at above grade, or having all the bins sitting at ground elevation. In terms of approvals, yes, a new certificate of approval will be required. The process takes less time, it's less time consuming than expanding a landfill. The landfill will have to be closed, and as part of that closure of the landfill, you still need to continue to do monitoring at the site for at least 25 years. Then what else in terms of documentation? Yes, you have to put together a design and operations report, then put together a tender package to build the facility, and then you will have, yes, the disposal, find an agree, get an agreement with the disposal facility. In terms of cost, yes, you will have to take into consideration the hauling of the materials and the tipping fees to be paid. And the other option that was looked at was a new disposal site. So this one, yes, you'll have to look at different sites, make sure that they meet the requirements in terms of setbacks, do more studies in terms of geotechnical and hydrogeo, and purchase land if you don't own the land. And in terms of the approvals, it will be similar to expanding the landfill. You will have to go through a full EA, which can take up to 5 years, and then do, yes, all the amendment applications to get the certificates of approval. So if we start looking at cost for each of these options, in terms of expanding the landfill by about 100 cubic meters, you will be looking at approximately like 2.4 million. That includes all the traffic studies, environmental, surface water, all the supporting documentations as part of the EA, the detailed design, the environmental approval fees, and in terms of capital costs, since you already own the majority of the land, we are looking at approximately 1.5 million. For the transfer stations, it's all depending on what type of facility you want to build on site, but it's about from 2 to 4.5 million, just depending on what type of facility is implemented. And the big one, yes, is trying to establish a new landfill site, which could cost around the 8.7 million. So At this point, yes, we can open for detailed maybe questions in terms of these options.
Okay, so I think the best thing is, does council have any questions on any of the options? Not necessarily an opinion, because I think we all have made our opinions, but any questions on any specific option that we are looking at right now or has been presented? Deputy Mayor.
Just for clarity, our current expansion application is left out of this discussion, correct? The 40,000 expansion?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and Christina can provide if I'm wrong, but the current expansion that we're looking at is just giving us enough time
Yeah.
to put the bigger picture in place as far as whether we're going with the transfer
Yeah.
station or whatever.
Because my question is, obviously, if we decided on the transfer station,
Right.
the current expansion, the number of years may be increased, correct?
Well, we need
We're
that.
saying
We need that to get to where we want to get to.
Correct.
Okay, because okay.
Because we're going to run out next year, so if we
Yeah.
don't do anything, we're done.
No, and I understand that, but Christina had said 4 to 5 years for the 40,000.
For the 40,000, yes, you
Expansion.
get additional capacity.
Yes.
But the,
So
yes.
if the transfer station was implemented fairly, I use the term loosely, quickly, then perhaps the 4 to 5 years for the lifespan could be increased, correct? Or is
It
that
would-
4 to 5 years projection considering a potential?
So you understand the question, Christina, that if we
Yes.
continue down
If
the
you
road of
implemented
the minor expansion, and if we did decide on doing the transfer station, could we, and the transfer
Yes.
station gets built, could we have basically both on site to A, finish up what we've got, and B, give us that time to get to where we need
For
to get
education
to?
and stuff?
Yes, that's correct. If you implement the transfer station, yes, you will increase those 4 to 5 years.
Okay. Any further questions on any of the specifics? Okay, so what we can do is we as council have received all that information from staff, including your lists of pros and cons and budget. I'm sure we've all read it and come to a conclusion of where we feel we need to go in the short and long term. So I'll go around the table and we'll make that decision, because it narrows the discussion up significantly on where we're going to go down the road next. Yes?
Just one thing, and maybe Christina can clarify, when we talk about the expansion option, by even it going down that option, we're not guaranteed that we would be given the expansion, correct? So we could have all these costs incurred, but we're not guaranteed that we could actually get that approved, correct?
That's correct. That happened to Walker, as an example.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think, I think we're all going to discuss on some of the challenges
Yeah.
of doing the major expansion.
Absolutely.
You're right. There's no guarantees in
guarantee.
life,
Yep.
and some of the solutions were presented are easier to deal with than some of the unknowns of other expansions. So, Deputy Mayor?
So I've read through it. I am for the transfer station. The Matilda landfill expansion for not the current one, but the increased one, there's no guarantees, and I think we need to get out of that. And the new disposal site, just no, and the private thing, I think the cost would be too high. So I'm in a short form, for the transfer station.
Yeah, and we'll determine what kind of form if we go down
Yeah.
that road
Yeah.
eventually. But Councilor Wells?
Thank you, Mary. Yeah, just short and sweet, like I'm definitely in the transfer station option, but I'm also looking at like to privatize it too, like I said earlier, to have a private company come in and do the transfer station and actually charge the residents and whatever, and we provide the property for them to do that. Is it doable? I'm sure there's big companies out there like GFL might be interested in stuff like that, where they're getting the money. So, but to that, like the other one we can't afford, the new facility, and myself, I wouldn't want to go through what we just went through in another, knowing a new dump facility wouldn't be like the one at Matilda, but I just, I think it's a lot easier for municipalities to maybe get out of the dump business and let people run it by themselves. I think at the end of the day, we're gonna have to pay one way or the other. But I think it's a lot less headaches on council staff and everything else, and the cost would go down a lot more if we could have someone else build the transfer station and run it, and they would get the money. That's it for now, Mayor.
Councillor Lewis?
I agree that we should go with the expansion and the transfer station. This municipality can't afford a new landfill site. And we're really not solving anything at the end of the day anyways. So I would say let's go for the expansion and go with the transfer station.
Councillor Mellon?
Yeah. The 40,000 works, we've got an application in right now, gets us 5 more years. I'm for the transfer station because a new landfill or a big 100,000 cubic meter expansion has got headaches and extra costs that aren't included in this, just on a land basis, that, you know, scares the crap out of me. So, if, right now, maybe enlighten me, each truckload of garbage that's picked up, is that like on each road? Is there one load of garbage, like one truckload, or is there more than one truckload per route?
We've got, I believe, 2 trucks through HDC right now that are running per schedule.
route.
Per route, yeah.
So there's 2 trucks running, there's one, like each one has one load
Yep.
on.
Correct.
I like the transfer station. I'm just gonna, I read this report and I was thinking over how we can extend out that 4 or 5 year, if all our garbage goes to Matilda right now, with the current expansion, the 40,000 cubic meter expansion, it's gonna be filled up in 5 years. I don't wonder if we should start diverting some of our route garbage now. It'll give us longer on the 4 or 5 year 40,000 cubic meter expansion. That's all, I was thinking. I think the transfer station is the way to go. If we start diverting some of our garbage now from our Matilda landfill site, that'll give us that 40,000 if we're successful with it. Start contracting out small portions now. It'll get us more than 5 years. I don't know, if, it'll get us more than 5 years on the 40,000 cubic meter current expansion application we have in there now. That's just a thought of my I was going through my brain sitting there this morning at 4 o'clock in the morning watching the sun come up. So that's all. Mayor Bybell's transfer station, I think, is our best option. Maybe we should be leaning towards, because we're going to be going to a contract anyways once our landfill's filled up. And I wouldn't say divert all our curbside pickup garbage there right now, but could we double the 40,000, amount of years? Could we get more than, we should get more than 5 if we took half our garbage out of there, our curbside pickup. That's the only thing. I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that or not.
I don't think it's something we can look at. I think costs are involved, because to bring it from here to wherever it's going to go is not part of our current contract. So it's it's going to cost no matter how. And I suspect in the end it'll be cheaper just to take it to and fill our hole up and finish it off. But certainly can look at it. I concur with council. Like, I think transfer station is the way we need to look at waste management in the future. I think we've done a decent job at the landfill site to sort and separate what we can. I think, you know, my last visit there and dealing with the mattresses and the, and steel and anything, and the electronics all help us. Should we do more diversion? No doubt about it. I think we all need to do that job. But, you know, and there's various ways we can do transfer station. In the back of my mind, you know, we may have to wait a hair to figure out if there's going to be any collaboration with SDG and other municipalities. I don't want to be a total negative Nelly, but if North Dundas can't get their expansion, maybe we only need one transfer station in Dundas County. They're not a big mess from what I see of the Augusta site, which is just east of Maynard, if I remember right. It doesn't have to be one municipality. You know, if they have one, we have one, and somebody's going to look down the road and say, why do we have two in Dundas County when you could have had one somewhere, some way? But, but, you know, transportation is always a concern in how we do it. So I think we need to concentrate on the options of transfer stations and then go from there. Which basically leads into the next discussion. What type of transportation we think we want. And we have the Cadillac to the, I don't know, not sure what you call the last one, but it's down at the bottom. But I think I'll turn it over to you. You now know where we feel we need to go. I think there's various options. I think Councilor Wells brings up a good point of an option is you phone up what's a company like GFL or Thompson, if they want to do it, we'll give you the land. You give us a cost of how much you're going to do it. I'm not sure if anybody else has done that. Pros and cons to everything. So
Definitely something we can reach out and see if there's any contractors that are willing to do that. I know a lot of the models that we've seen is that we provide the bins and services, and then the company comes in and just hauls it away and disposes of the garbage. But definitely something we can look at. You know, when we look at what option council wants to go as far as the look of it, I don't think it's a concern right now as far as where we want to go. I think it's more of the direction so that WSP can start the process. One thing I would recommend is if council wants to, is that we look at a couple of transfer stations, is that we set up some meetings with the Augusta municipalities and do a site visit just to see what they look like, what's worked, what hasn't worked, just so that we don't kind of, you know, recreate issues that maybe happened in the past. So if that's something that council would like to do, definitely something we can set up with a couple of different transfer stations just to give you a look at it, even from a staff perspective. Give us all a look of what we're kind of looking at down the road. So that would be one thing I would throw out there right now.
I fully agree. Like, you have the Augusta site, North Grenville's are two that are relatively, you can do a circle, and if somebody got real ambitious and we feel we need to see what GFL looks like, for those who haven't been to GFL, it's quite an operation.
Right.
It's more insight into how the waste management can be done. I'm not saying that we can all apply it, but there's certain, you know, and not to dismiss any other company that can do it. And I know Tomlinson's in it and Coco is actually in it. There's other companies in it. North Grenville's got a new company in it. So companies evolve. Some of them look at this as a way of making a business and making money. So who knows?
So I'll definitely set that up, and we can then look at some dates and stuff. But the one thing I would actually say to Christina or for councils is that one, Christina, have you seen a model where we would give the land to a contractor and have them set up everything? And two, what would be the next steps for the municipality going down the transfer station route?
Yeah, so I actually worked with the First Nations a couple of years ago, where they were looking at those type of options because they were closing their landfill. And they picked to actually run their own facility In their case was because they were getting the capital financed by the ministry. But definitely, I know the workers, GFLs, Waste Connections, Waste Management, Tollinsons will be interested in getting into that business. And even if, yes, if you provide the land, that's a go for them. In terms of, yes, of the facility, so if you are going to be the ones operating the site, definitely just go for the tours, look at what works at other municipalities. Usually the things to consider is to have a one-way traffic, so no one is driving back and forward the same route. Also to have bins that can compact, that to minimize the amount of hauling. In terms of agreements, it's important to set up an agreement for a long term, like a 3 or 5 years, to set up that tipping fee. And it's usually good with a private facility. We had that experience approaching other municipalities, and they want to charge more than the tipping fee. They also want to charge part of that, what it costs to build a cell. So those are things to consider. Also keep in mind that based on Ontario Waste Management Association study, the remaining capacity for all landfills in Ontario is about 13 years right now. A lot of the big ones are going through expansions, which is a good thing. But at some point, yes, the landfill capacity is going to deplete. So whoever end up in with the capacity in those 5 years is going to also deal with the bigger tipping fees. So it's good to have long-term contracts in place.
Okay, so we'll go around the table again, just comments on what we have discussed and thoughts going forward. Deputy Mayor?
Thanks, Mayor. It's thousands and thousands of dollars of commitment. I think we definitely need to go. Pretty hard to make a decision based on the paper picture. So I would like to see 2 or 3 municipal run ones, and then I'd also I don't just want one, like just GFL. If we can have something else, I think we need comparisons. But I think that's the way to do it. I think that. It'd be interesting to have somebody available that can answer questions, yep. And I think that's responsible. So that's what I would like to do.
Councilor Wells.
Yeah, I've been to the one up Maynard there. Actually, right too. It's just a look at the bottom picture. It basically looks like that. It'd be nice to get. I don't know if we really have to go and see them, but I'd be up for that. Like you're just dumping garbage into a container. Be more to how they manage it, the administration part of it. I'd be interested in like a report from them to see a container. A container is a container. But I definitely would like to have talked to companies, because at the end of the day, when things even Christine, you're mentioning about the costs and to cover their costs, which there's going to be a fee. Doesn't matter whether the municipality does it or whether it's done privately to build a transfer station. At the end, it's the residents that are going to pay for it, or the users. So I think definitely the transfer, and I think if there's so many out there, I think the bigger companies will see opportunity where if they had the land and as a municipality lease it to them for $1 and do a 10-year contract, that they have the tipping fees instead of coming to us I would definitely, that'd be the route for me. And usually, no disrespect to municipalities or governments or that, usually the private sector runs things a lot better than the government does in most cases. But that's about all for now, Mayor.
Councilor Lewis.
Oh, I definitely think a transfer station is the way to go, but I think to go on site to see 2 or 3 different transfer stations would also be very educational to council. to see how they operate, because I know I've never been to a transfer station. And I think that would be something to look at and, ask some questions. And so I'm like the deputy mayor, I'm up for going to see 2 or 3 and just see how they operate. Thank you.
Councilor Mellon.
Yeah, I like that first one, not the Taj Mahal of transfer stations. Let me tell you, that looks like an incinerator to me, but I'm not gonna go there. Yeah, we need to go, I would like to go see it. If we can get the municipalities even maybe to open their books up a little bit, and say, this is what we got into it, this is what our daily cost is. Councillor Wells has a very good idea. Get those numbers too. Let's, we're gonna have a little bit of time here, and with the SD&G, the collaboration thing, and that's, that's why I thought of that this morning about, maybe, diverting some of our curbside pickup now, if we need that extra time. That's something we can keep in the back burner. Let's face it, we can make a short-term contract if we think, okay, we need 2 more years, let's divert half of our curbside pickup. And that's something to keep in the back of our mind. But let's go look at them. Maybe they'll give us, a breakdown on, this works, this doesn't work. This is what it costs us, what a private contractor would do. I would be a little cautious on a private contractor, because obviously our curbside pickup's gonna be going into our landfill. And how much of the transfer station garbage, and that'll be I think that'll be the big question from a private contractor's point of view. How much are we going to be generating here? We're gonna put in X number of dollars to set it up. They're gonna maybe, and that's something that we can negotiate and find out, because if they're, if they put some money into putting a private transfer station in and they collect the money, they're gonna wanna know, I would think, I would have an idea, a rough idea, how much revenue they're gonna generate from from their investment, from how much garbage and whatnot's going into it. But I think it's well worth the effort to explore it and find out. But yeah, so.
Good? Okay. Well, I do believe seeing is something that visual thing is good. If we can go look and look at various types of transfer stations that are local, and if we, and I think part and parcel that these municipalities give us information, most of their information is public to start with, but some of that information might be lessons learned. We all do things, and then as soon as we're done, we say, well, we should have maybe did this, should have maybe did that. So I think those things you can always hopefully improve on, but and seeing what the big companies do. It doesn't have to be GFL. There are others in the Ottawa area. GFL's the SDG one, on how to manage waste and how they do it, and what their vision would be for us. And whether it's them or another company, I think we certainly should explore it and see what we have to do. I think from a cost transfer point of view, and it won't be us maybe as a council, but council down the road, I think to transfer all the costs of waste management over to users in 1 or 2 years is, I think, too much. I think we're going to get a lot of pushback on that. Whoever's here, I think it's going to be that slow and gentle. Over time, municipality pays for X, but if you go and do Y, then you're going to be paying for it, and that kind of middle management. In the end, residents of South Dundas have to understand that their waste costs money. The more you put out there, the more it does cost. The companies the businesses of South Dundas are going to have to come to the realization that the more they generate, the more they're going to have to deal with, and then we have to deal with it on a private contractor right from the start. Some do, but there's a few that do not yet, and we do pick them up. So, and as Councillor Mellon has alluded to, you can make this thing evolve over time. That if we need more time diverting some straight out to a private contractor, maybe something to do, or that combination thereof. So I think there's options on the table. I don't think we should make rash decisions. I think we have to make these decisions in the next 6 months that we start the ball rolling. And in 12 months, that ball has come to a conclusion of where South Dundas is going with waste management long term, because we all, when we were elected, we knew we had a challenge coming up with landfills, and a lot of the challenges that got dealt to us were not of anybody's fault. Closing of Williamsburg was certainly a shock to the municipality and how to deal with landfills, our waste. Matilda is filling up. We have to deal with that. We also have to deal with, the off-site issues that have been caused over many, 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 many years. Nobody's fault, just the way things have happened. We're not no sense in playing the blame game, but let's look forward and see what we can do for South Dundas to make this work. Be interested to see if there's any collaboration with other municipalities, whether it be North Dundas or South Stormont, our neighbors. Probably easier with North Dundas, and I have not talked to the mayor or deputy mayor concerning what their plans are. They were pretty adamant that they get their expansion, but I haven't heard anything lately. So if they get their expansion, then possibly we still work with them going forward. So, but I think the more information we can get to a certain point, but in the end, this narrows it down, and we can come out with a decision by year end, and then a full decision in 6 months, in 12 months. Does that make sense to council? Okay, any further questions from staff or Christina concerning this?
Nope, I think what we'll look at doing then is bring an action report back to council at our next meeting, or in August, just confirming that the transfer station is the way we're going, and then we can work out the logistics as we do on sites and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
With that, then we'll move over to the compost depots.
So, as indicated in the report, this was more of an update for council in regards to how our first depot day went. Numbers in Iroquois and Morrisburg were around the 200 mark. Costs for the each day was about $4,000. So I know council has talked about offering more depot days, and looking for some discussion with council today. In talking with Christina, we talked about possibly using our own bins as options. At the end of the day, if we do any of that, we still have to have our own license to haul it and collect it. So if council wants to look at additional days throughout the summer, or one more day, it would just be an additional expenditure to our budget line to do that. So, but maybe Christine, if you can provide just a brief overview of the composting and what is required if we decided to do it ourselves.
Sure. So if you're planning to haul your own organic waste, there are two types of approvals. One is the Environmental Activity and Sector Registry, what is called an ESER, and that allows you to mobilize that waste, but it has to be disposed at the facility the same day. Doesn't allow for storing that material in the trucks or at another facility. The other one, if you need to store it, is just to go and apply for an ECA amendment to allow that storage to take place. For this, you will need to have the vehicle information, the equipment that you're planning to use in the operations. In terms of insurance, to have a 1 million liability insurance, and prove that the disposal facility can accept that material and the quantities.
Okay, so Anything
Yeah.
further
So
before I
just
go around?
currently
council?
right now, the setup is GFL drops for bins off on the Wednesday, and it's locked at night when when staff are not there, and then the following week, they come and pick it up and they take the compost away. So that's kind of what we're doing right now, but definitely there's other options if council chooses to, or we can look at providing more days, but there'll just be a cost associated with that, that's all.
Mayor?
Thanks, Mayor. So this is diversion. We just talked about diversion. This is diversion. Quick question, are we tied in currently with a contract with GFL, or is that a
No.
first come, first serve? And is there, I know we have 3 days on the map.
Yep.
Was can we do, like when I looked at, we have 6 more weeks technically of collection. Three times in, oh, wait a minute. Do we have, sorry, not 6 more weeks. We have
6 more days.
yeah, 6 more days for each
Yes.
village. And I'm just thinking, is there any way that we could spread that out a little bit? Because the feedback I got was very professionally run. The staff should be commended. There was one staff in particular that was amazing at the education, doing the feedback and stuff. So people, the ones I heard back was it's enough, but it's not enough time.
Okay.
So I have 4 compost bags in my garage right now. And the people I've talked to it's fairly like they're collecting now. So when they look at our schedule, they're thinking, I think we have October, November dates.
Yeah, so if I'm looking here just for council, so for Morrisburg, we've got October 13th, 15th, 16th, November 3rd, 5th, and 6th. And then for Iroquois, we've got October 6th, 8th, 9th, October 20th, 22nd, and 23rd.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering if with the budgeted amount without adding extra money, are we able to play around with the days a little bit and maybe reduce it by 1? So it's maybe only 2 collection days, but we're able to add an extra.
Yeah, the only thing I would see is that there'd be just additional cost in moving the bins around,
Okay.
right? Because
So
it's
they-
placed there that one day and it doesn't get
So
picked up.
GFL is doing that?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe if we do a staggered approach, like there should be some way that we can work it where we'd be able to do a pickup in August. I think for next year, if we're able to maybe spread it out a little bit
Yep.
and maybe not have multiple days, but have one day, but have it like a full calendar of the weeks
Sure.
kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. If August is what council is looking at as far as another date, we can definitely go back and look at some other creative ways of making sure that happens without.
Oh, you could probably cancel the November one.
Right, or we cancel
Yeah.
the November only be in Morrisburg.
Yeah.
But we look at maybe having a day in Morrisburg in August instead.
Yeah.
Something like
Yeah,
that. Where
something,
people
spread
can
it
travel.
out, because
Yep.
that was the feedback I got,
Sure.
where people thought it was great, and I know not everyone's a fan of this exercise, but it's diversion. It's protecting our landfill as well as whatever, and it didn't cost us any more than what it was to run the dumpster fire that was the compost site in Morrisburg. So that's the only thing that I think needs to be shifted that I've heard is the time, our timings aren't right. Folks that were not happy with it were actually found it very professionally run and kind of thought that it was a good thing. It's just not enough. So, like I said, 4 bags already. So that's it.
Council Wells?
Thank you, Mayor. I personally myself, I haven't heard any feedback from it, but I thought, Shannon, and I thought we budgeted was 18,000 for this program originally, wasn't it?
11,000.
Yeah.
11,000 was to do kind of 3 days. Yeah.
So this 11,000 is for the whole
Whole
period?
year.
For the whole year?
Yeah.
I don't know why
It was costing us 18 to do our own.
Okay.
I think
My
that's where
mistake.
that number
Yeah.
came from, Council.
But we can still take, if you want to take your compost to Matilda, we can, right?
Yeah.
So that's an option for people too, like, I have no issues about adding another day or taking a day out or moving them, but like people got to realize they can take it to Matilda. I actually talk about feedback, I did have some people call me about where the municipality they wanted to take a couple bags of leaves, and it's a free compost, but they were gonna get charged the $10 to go into the dump. And hopefully that's not the case, because the two people that actually called me, they got no reason to lie to me about that. So that's just something you want to look into to let staff know, like, if there's compost coming, like, it's free.
My understanding of that, Councillor Wells, is that compost is free, but if you bring branches,
Correct.
that's where you get dinged.
It's that multiple
Yeah,
use,
and-
right? Sometimes it'd be a
So,
mixed load, so that's
branches
that's
are
some of the
not
issue,
compost.
Right? Yeah.
No, and we always had to pay for burning anyways. Like, the way we used to do it, if you paid, originally it was $5, now we're paying 10 to get in there. But if you paid that $10 and you had 2 or 3 loads of brush, you could bring it all in on that $10. It wasn't $10 each time.
I'm not sure how they handle that.
That's the way, well, I know for a fact that's the way it used to be run. I can't think of us changing. I don't remember changing if we did in all our fees and stuff.
No,
But, yeah, so if we can just make sure staff's not actually doing that, and if they're not aware of the way the compost goes, but, no, other than that, like I said, I haven't heard anything, but, so, not hearing anything is a good thing too sometimes, so. Okay, that's it for me, Mayor.
Councillor Lewis?
I think we had a good year at compost. You know, we got a lot of compliments, and as the deputy mayor said, one individual was very educational to the people. They I think they got more respect as spring went on. The only thing that I would have to say is nice weather come early this year. And the only complaint that I did get was maybe we should be looking at April with nice weather, which I understand, because if we get the nice weather, then people's out there raking and going on. So maybe we can do one extra one in April and one in the fall of the year. But other than that, I think everything ran pretty smooth. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Mellon? Yeah, we didn't charge yet, but I know where you're going. Fair enough, I don't disagree with you totally, but
I could see adding a day or here or there. I still think it should be a user pay system, people. I think we just went through an exercise where we saw the total cost of what our landfills and whatnot is, and we're offering free composting facilities. That's what people have been used to in Iroquois, Morrisburg. Yes, you know, I'm not saying we're make money off this, but cover our cost or a little bit of that 11,000, and if we add an extra day or two here or there, it's going to maybe be a little bit more because we've got to move the containers. You know, they can take compost to Matilda for free. The branches are going to cost you $10. There's that diversion. We're looking at diversion. I'm going to make this I'm going to comment again that right now we're charging $10 to get in the gate for steel, electronics, and tires, and we get paid for those. It don't cost us. Like the electronics, we're doing that. We're doing that for a fundraiser with the House of Lazarus. Steel, we get money back. And tires,
We don't get money for tires
that
anymore.
program's gone?
Yes.
Sorry,
Yeah.
scratch that tire. I didn't realize that the $2 or $1 we were getting for
Yeah, we were
tires.
getting through OTS and that.
That's
that program.
why I'm
Yes.
seeing them on the Fulton Road. And, but that's the only thing. I think if
We-
somebody's
we
bringing
take-
electronics in,
you take tires for nothing though, right?
Yes.
Besides getting in.
yeah,
Yeah, okay, just
Yeah.
making sure that we're not charging people if they bring tires for the tires themselves. It's the fee to get in that costs them money.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that we don't charge them for the tires, just
No.
a fee to get in.
Just the $10, yeah.
But we're not getting any money back from them tires when we sell them.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, well then, I have no problem with that. It's the steel and electronics and.
Yep.
But anyway, I think that, you know, if somebody's bringing a computer or a stereo in and that's all they're bringing in and is going into the container bin for the House of Lazarus, which there's a fundraiser for them. And that's how it was originally set up. to me, I don't think we should be charging $10 for them to get in the gate, to take it and throw it in that shipping container that is set up at no cost to us. There's no cost at all to that, or, you know, and the steel, anyway, yeah, like, I mean, we're getting paid for steel, so it's almost double dipping. We're getting paid for the steel and we're charging people to bring it to the, and they're not gonna do it. But, it's, you know, as far as it goes, like, I still hold true to the fact that I think it should be a user pay system, but I mean, adding a day or two or shuffle them around like you mentioned, Deputy Gardner, I have no issue. I don't hear anything. To be honest with you, I've never heard any pros and cons. Well, I'm back in God's country, so nobody says anything to me back there anyways about the compost days in Iroquois or Morrisburg. I'm sorry. They have commented on the electronics and on the steel. But okay, okay.
Okay, and I think your discussion leads into a further discussion possibly this fall on reviewing our fee structure at the landfill. You know, that was something that was recommended to us. We took it and it had made some logical sense because it still costs us money to have people there to allow someone in the gate and to get rid of something like. And that was the whole incentive, is try to accumulate a few more dollars to offset the cost of waste management in South Dundas. Councillor Wells.
Yeah, I just could agree with Councillor Mellon on that. And I agree with the fee. I don't recall us about that fee for just go in there. I know there was always a $5 charge if you had bags of garbage, but I always thought if there was steel, you just took your steel in because we're getting paid for the steel. And as far as electronics go, the same thing. Like it's going to House of Lazarus. So I would definitely back that. But like it's in there now, so when we do it over again, especially myself, will pay a little closer attention to that fee, and for sure.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I have gotten calls on the fee for the steel and stuff, and I'm in the same boat where the recommendation at the time seemed to make sense, but it's not making sense. So I would definitely support a review of that in the fall, I think.
Okay, so I think we just give you another job. I think we need to, at the latest September,
Yep.
we will look at those fees. We'll put you've heard some feedback to date. How it, what would be nice is how much that has accumulated fund-wise for us, and then we as council can determine what needs to be charged fairly for those who come in and what shouldn't be. I don't disagree that, if we're making just bringing in steel or electronics, or even tires, maybe we shouldn't charge, but it has to be very simple operation. The biggest feedback I've heard on the compost is people having to pay for branches to come in. We can have that debate. It's a slippery slope because there's a dividing line between those who have a small trailer full of branches from trimming their trees to the person who has cut down the ash tree in the backyard and now has to deal with it. And I think that debate will have to be something we need to think about. And then for contractors who end up having to, do we accept trees from contractors, brushes, stuff like that? It all fills up our landfills, and I don't, they're getting paid to do whatever they're getting to do, but some of us are lucky enough we have somewhere in the back 40 to deal with it, but a lot of people don't. I know Councilor Mellon's smiling, but he knows exactly what I'm saying, so I did it myself, so it's just, but we have to be fair to our residents and fair to us as a municipality, and where's the right line? What's the right fee for everything? So don't want to make it too complicated, that's for sure. This $10 fee was easy. You walk in the gate, $10. It's simple as that. But everybody makes a multi-purpose trip. They've got garbage in the back of the truck and leaves on a trailer and steel. Like I remember, or a mixed load that they have to divide out. You know, most people have to do that on their own, but still has to be managed. We all know what happens when somebody says, I got a bunch of steel to bring back, and they go to the steel pile and they unload the truck. And then all that stuff that wasn't supposed to be in the steel pile has to come out of that steel pile. So, you know, I think, listening, maybe a good exercise that day would be having one of our personnel from the landfill come
Absolutely.
to council and say, this is what really happens back there, and these are my ideas,
That'd be good.
because they're the boots in the ground. I respect that. And I think
Yep.
one of our staff members is from what I picked up, is very keen on doing it right, and has some ideas of where we can go, whether they save money. It still has to be within the law, and I understand that some ideas won't pass the sniff test, and maybe you need to sort them out first.
Yep.
But if there's ways that we can manage that facility better for the benefit for everybody, then I want to hear from those people. There's
Absolutely.
no doubt about it.
Absolutely. Nope, great day.
Okay. So anything further on compost at this time? I think, expanding the days
Okay.
within budget would be all right, because this is a transition year.
Yep.
As much as Councilor Mellon wants to charge, and I don't, I'm not disputing or disregarding his thought. Majority council wanted to try this out. We have $11,000 to play with. Moving, you have to keep in mind, if you take days away and try to move them, it's still a transfer from here to Moose Creek that costs you the money.
Right.
That's
I think
the killer.
the big issue right now, though, is it's too many months in between May and October.
Okay.
You've got to do, if anyone's got a little vegetable garden, or I know for me,
Yep.
I trim and maintain, and I'm lucky I can put it in my garage, but
Yeah.
some people can't, so.
Well, true, but as been alluded to by Councilor Wells, the Matilda site is open on days of operation,
Yeah.
And all
true.
day, 8 to 4 Saturday. If you have the ability to bring it back to our site, that is free of charge. Yes, it will cost you money, but you have to understand that it's your stuff, and we give you an opportunity to get rid of it this way, or you can wait it out and wait for the one that actually costs us more money.
But my thing is just the dates don't make sense. That's the feedback
It was
was.
all
the
learning
dates-
experience, right?
Yeah,
And
the dates
it's-
are just not making
As
sense.
Councilor Lewis alluded to, spring came early.
Yeah.
In a normal year, on April the 10th, you would not expect to go out and plant corn
Yeah.
like happened in
Yeah.
Dundas County this year.
Yeah.
It's just not a normal
I
thing.
just, for November, I'm a gardener, and in more ways than one, and I would not have anything in November, right? All my beds are gone, all my, everything's gone. And if you're trying to not have people show up with branches and all that stuff, then having it in November, whenever I probably am gonna show up, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's,
It depends on the choices of trees you've made around your
Yep.
yard,
yep,
because the early ones are gone.
Yeah.
But some of us have oak trees that they hang on till December. Yes, Councilor Mellon.
Yeah, that little presentation we had back a while ago about the tabletop composter thing.
yeah.
Did
what
we ever
happened
go
to that?
anything with that?
They're still going through the process with GFA and getting the approvals and stuff, so it's still.
So South Glengarry got their funding
Yeah.
approved for that, eh?
Yeah, so we're just waiting on our rep to get the approval on his side, so I'm still in conversations with him as far as they're still waiting on approvals.
Okay.
Yeah,
And what about like you say you do it, Mayor Byville, it's a backyard compost thing. We don't promote or is there any link to say it's on our website, as far as education, diversion, just maybe something to look at. I don't know. I don't do it, but sorry, I throw it into the field, but. Something like that, maybe on our website, our link, I don't know if
It's
there's.
tricky though, because I have, if I may, Mayor, I have a backyard composter as well, but that's for kitchen, vegetable, like kitchen
talking-
scraps, that type of thing. Very different than if I'm ripping out hosta, like whatever,
Yeah.
hostas, dandelion, like it's different stuff. The
different-
pile would be,
The kitchen waste, and I'm not talking, the
salad scraps.
the green waste, not
Yeah.
certainly the protein waste, because
Yeah.
they are not something you want to deal with on a small basis. Then have to look at City of Ottawa and how they do it.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty stinky job, and you and the larvae will be good friends by the end of the summer. But the green waste, if we can find ways of people to divert that somehow, some way, if they can, on their own property, then that's the way to go, and that saves on A, landfill space, and B, makes our landfill a little bit more environmentally friendly.
And that's
because
the,
of
and that's the
greenhouse gases.
miscommunication around our compost sites, is there were residents that were using it for kitchen waste, and that is actually not the proper use of a compost site. Compost sites are leaves, garden stuff, that type of thing. A kitchen, we should not be doing that. That's easily solved by a little backyard composter. So that's where our residents, we failed somewhat in education, because we have folks that are seeing it one way and it's not necessarily the right way.
I think going down the road, even if we go to transfer station or wherever we do, and how we do it, education is going to be the key.
Yeah.
Conversion is that, and just letting the people know what happens to it once it goes to the curb and the blue truck
Yeah.
picks it up. And it's not a disappearing act. It does not disappear. It is around for many, many, many years yet. And if there's a way that each and every one of us can slow that down, I think that's on all of us. And if there's people who don't want to make that choice, that's fair enough. Then I'll do the Councillor Mellon's, thou shall pay. Simple as that. We can only do so much. And there's other ways of financing garbage. City of Ottawa charges every resident, every property a fee on top of their property taxes. So they know every year when they get their property bill, it's about $100 per resident. So or per residential property, because my son pays it. So
It's so tricky though, because if I can go and pay an extra bag fee, right, which is what, 125, 150? 125. You can charge me whatever you want. If I don't care and I'm not environmentally conscious, I can just spend 125 in a black bag and I could put whatever I want in, and that could fill up our landfill if I was that ignorant and decide to put oak leaves or whatever in it and put it at the curb. If I paid the 125, then so that's the hard balance. It's a tricky balance.
the 125 sounds reasonable. There's some people that think that's far unreasonable and put it on Fulton Road for
But if you
council.
but if you pay say for
That's our balancing act
say
here,
for
boys and girls.
composting, you charge like say a $30 thing or
Yeah.
whatever. There will be people that will say, fine, I'll just put my leaves in a $1.25 bag.
Yeah, well, I
So
know.
that's the tricky part,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. So, okay, anything else from any member of council on this? Staff?
So just direction as far as the way the compost days are outlined right now, is council okay with us changing the one in November in Morrisburg to an August one? Is that council's direction, or how do you, or keep it the same as what's presented?
You want it?
When's the October date?
In Morrisburg is
Morrisburg.
October 13th, 15th,
13th, you gotta have the
and 16th.
13th
So-
and 16th, because that's about the right place. That's Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, so that's where I'm trying to think if you could stretch them out.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like look
And
at the
November
whole
3rd
picture.
to 6th will be a very lean one, I
Yeah,
think.
that's what I
I think you
think.
may have to kind of shift it.
Yeah, put the
Come
October
up with
one a
some
little
ideas,
bit.
looking at calendars and shifting and see how that works.
Because you could
Would that
look,
be
you know,
fair?
if council wants something in August, we've got 4 days, like 4 weeks left. We could
Yeah.
do one in August, one September, one October, and one in early
See,
November.
and that's the way people have suggested it to me, where it's like if you had more but spread them out,
we
your
could do that.
versus whatever, you're not changing the price, but you're
Just people are
yeah.
gonna have to, people
More
in
option.
Morrisburg might have to travel to Iroquois for that month, or Iroquois to Morrisburg, but it's still, and as the mayor said, there's still the Matilda landfill that takes it for free.
Yeah. So that might be a good option.
Okay, well, you can come back. What's your thoughts?
Everyone else thinks as long as we stay in budget and maybe talk to GFL to make sure, like, we're adding these extra days, so they're not gonna bring containers out even though they agreed to so many days. They might not
Yeah,
agree to
I'll follow up with
spreading
them
it
and
out,
see.
right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
Because they might already have trucks allotted for other
Yep.
things like this. But no, I'm in favor of moving whatever the council wants.
Councilor Lewis?
Sounds good to me.
Drive on.
Okay. If you want to bring a KAR to council, just
Sure.
that way we'd have it, and that way the communication will have to be put out, and that's always something that's very important.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm circling back a bit before we go into the last one. We were asked,
So
okay.
we can let them go.
Yeah, Christina,
Yes?
I think there's no more from council for you. We do thank you for your input this morning. It's very important that we as council get the professional input we need. As much as we think we have ideas, that it all has to make logical sense, and you've been in the business longer than the rest of us. So I do appreciate your input this morning, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Oh, thank you so much, and we appreciate your time. And yes, we're here to help you out.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
So circling back to the 4 questions we got this morning from Derek. It's on page 11 of your package. So first one is, which waste management collaboration opportunities interest your municipality the most? And there's examples of public education, et cetera, there. I don't want, I don't mind spending some time on this, but I think, give us your Cole's notes on that, and each one, staff can write down the answers, and then we can send it to Derek, and he can deal with it and see how it works out with the rest. So question 1 to start.
Thanks, Mayor. For the first one, I think the education piece, I think is a collaboration. I think that we can, if say we all collaborated and it's the same message, I think that would be a good thing. I think it's going to be a hard thing though, because right now all the municipalities do different things. So I think that would be, I think the recycling aspect, as far as say something, I hate to harp on this, but say something like wrapping paper. I've been told by someone that is a demand process. So you have to find somebody, a collector that has demand to recycle that product before we can collect. I think a perfect thing would have been if we could have collaborated with South Stormont and picked up the wrapping paper recycling. We would have kept hundreds of bags out of the landfill. So I think unique things like that, where we dial in if another municipality is doing something and say it's a direct neighbor to us, I think that's where the collaboration could come into effect, because you're not going to have to pay transportation costs. And I think, the customer service, that's interesting in the sense that if you're doing some education, maybe a one-stop line for people to call and get some information. I don't see that as a long-standing commitment. I see it more as an introductory thing where we have this thing where you can talk to a real person and discuss recycling or whatever. But for me, it's if a neighboring municipality is able to do something, then we should be able to maybe hop on board and help us out that way. So those are my few there.
Councilor Wells?
The education part is, if we're going to collaborate with other municipalities to get their feedback on what they're going to do and how they're going to educate or set up to educate people and stuff. I think we just have to, if we're going to go that route, just everyone will have to really get together for the education part. And customer service, like Deputy Mayor said, where someone can call and just ask a question and get the service and direct them and stuff like that. The organic leaf and yard waste, well, we're already dealing with that. So, and again, public or private collection, It's again, it would be once, if we're all going to collaborate together, maybe we all take the route where, okay, maybe the private's good, or no, maybe we keep doing it ourselves. So that's the way I would look at that, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilor Lewis?
I think the key one to question number one is the public education. I'm not saying that people are ignorant or rude. I just believe that they don't understand the system, and I'm talking our own system. I'm not talking the other 5 municipalities. I'm here for South Dundas, so I'm going to speak for South Dundas. Customer service, I think the customer service has come a long ways from when we got elected. I think if they call the office here, whoever answers the phone can either help them or get the information that they're looking for. And we've already did the, we are doing the compost. And I think our waste disposal is working good. I know there is some bugs with this new company, but it will all work out in the wash. They haven't been here that long. And I think once they get the root down to where their science is, it'll all work out all right. And that's all I have to say. But I do believe the public education is the key word. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Mellon?
I guess I'm going to look at this a little different as far as collaboration opportunities. And that's the key word to interest your municipality the most. I'd leave public education and customer service for a later date. To me, what collaboration right now is the waste disposal, either public or private, and the collection. They're your big ticket items. We can piggyback on with public education, customer service, organic leaf, and yard waste. Until we have to figure out where we're going as far as waste disposal and the collection of it, if there's going to be any collaboration, that's where we got to start, to me, anyways. And we can work on the other ones once we get the big ones sort of collaborated together, if we're going to go down that road. So that's, to me, is where we should focus our energy right now.
I agree with Councilor Mellon. I think, some of the soft stuff we can do as a lower tier, but to work together with the other municipalities, I'd like to see ways that we can save some big dollars, or at least work together to make common sense goals on waste disposal and how things happen in the big stuff. If we don't have that objective as lower tiers going forward in this exercise, then we're pretty well shot and we'll be on our own forever. So, even if it's just working with your neighboring lower tiers, that's better than nothing. But in the end, as we all say, if you want an incinerator in Eastern Ontario, it has to be a big one, and I'm all for it. If the City of Ottawa and all the other cities want to do it, and we can find somewhere to make it work, like they have in Durham, York, then let's do it. There's no doubt about it. But that's where I see collaboration for the most part with the project. Second question, what information does your council need to be able to decide whether to support regional and or intermunicipal collaboration efforts?
Diversion programs, so what can be diverted, because we tossed around the list, but I've never really seen a list of what there's a market for, right? Like I said, I hate to say wrapping paper, I was surprised there was a market for that, but there actually is. So we need that. I think we need cost ratios, kind of what you said, Mr. Mayor, is when we talk about this, what would the actual cost be if, say, we did something absolutely crazy like the counties decided to buy garbage trucks and do pickup for all 6 municipalities? What does that cost look like compared to what we're all paying for collection? Like if they own the trucks and ran them and stuff, none of those numbers have come to the table, and I think that's information that I think is required. And And I really would like to nail down the advancements in technology. I think we're quite archaic in our conversation, and I think that there needs to be comparables as to what other countries are even doing. I think that people hate that because they think it will distract from whatever, but I think that the answer's out there, and I think reinventing the wheel all the time is going to leave us spinning our wheels. So I would like to have some conversation about advancements in technology. So.
As well.
Well, the information I would like to see for this would be the cost, definitely, and just to see how many lower tiers or upper tier or whatever wants to actually collaborate to see where we're going to go. Till we find that information out, we can sit here and go back and forth. It's and we're not going to really whether we're going to end up doing it on our own but at the end of the day, the cost is the main thing, and how many want to get on board. And like you said, we could do something, and then all of a sudden, like Deputy Mayor says, counties decide, well, they're going to take care of all the garbage or whatever. So I would like to see costs, and just to see if the other municipalities are actually having meetings like we are right now to see if we're going to do it as a whole or as a single municipality.
Yes, Lewis?
I have to agree with my two colleagues. You know, we have thrown around what it was going to cost the municipality ourselves to buy trucks and put men on the back of them. But the big picture is if we're going to work with the other municipalities, we should actually get the cost of what it's going to really cost to run that way. I think when we talk the incinerator, right now that's out of our realm. By what I hear, it costs a lot of money to build these and to operate them, and the rules and regulations are just absolutely crazy. But I would like to see actual prices of what it would cost for us as a group to run garbage trucks and everything.
Councilor Mellon?
Yeah, I mean, we need to, the dollars and cents need to be there, what we're spending now compared to what we could be spending, if we do an collaboration effort, either regionally or intermunicipal collaboration, what that cost is, private compared to in-house, I guess, doing it ourselves. And I think we need long-term costing too. Let's not just look at what it's going to cost us to set something up. Incinerators. Let's not. What's a 20-year payback on an incinerator? What's it going to cost us compared to let's go with a private landfill, private contractor. And then you can darn near guarantee you're going to build 2 to 4% increase every year into those contracts. So let's look at what. And we need those numbers. I think we need all the numbers as much as we possibly can, and I think Councillor Weld and Deputy Mayor Gardner already alluded to how many are going to be on board with this. I mean, no sense us running this by running, to me, 1 or 2 municipalities. We got to have, yes, we can do some things in a smaller scale, intermunicipal collaboration, but I think the real cost savings and the effort needs to be if it's on a regional basis, SD&G county level. But, let's look at everything. Maybe there's enough there to do it on an intermunicipal, a couple municipalities getting together and do some cost savings. But I think we need to have just sort of like, long-term projections, like, our asset management, what this is going to cost us out over the next 10, 20 years, because for the last 10 or 20 years, everybody's been sweeping this problem under the carpet, and now, golly darn, it's right dead front and center on ours, and, and those things will have to be taken into consideration, I think. That's all, Mayor Boom.
I think I I fully agree with Councillor Mellon and the rest of the council. Like, we need costs. We need to know who's willing to work with us. We know who already does this and how well that works. That kind of information and anything else that would, strengthen the way we do things. It doesn't have to be public run, it can be private run, and I'm going to tell you right now, the counties are not going to own a garbage truck because they can't afford the labor running them. We got to be smart about how we do things. It's not cheap. It's not cheap no matter how you do it, but you got to be smart about it. Does your council have any input or preference regarding who should lead the coordination of collaboration efforts going forward, i.e. specific municipality, group municipality, SDG, or joint committee or board?
Because all 6 municipalities, lower tier municipalities, have different garbage issues, I would tend to go to SDNG or a committee. Problem with all committees is you're only as good as the member that sits on the committee. So, it's, but I do see it as kind of, as the upper tier, the SDNG, going forward, but I think there probably would have to be a committee or board associated with it, probably a committee more than a board, where specific, so equal representation is heard. I think that's the hard part, is if you, in South Dundas, we don't want to sit there and not have our voices heard properly, so it'd have to be something where everyone's heard. So I don't actually really know what the answer is for that, whether it's SDNG or a joint committee.
Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, on this one here, it's basically goes right back to number 2 question, like see who's on board and basically to coordinate stuff. And as far as I think the SDNG would be as far as running it, and committees, like Deputy Mayor says, you're only good as your representative. So I would lean towards SDNG if to be the leader in this, because all the representatives are there anyway. So that's the way I would answer this one, like just to see who was all on board, and then from there, then we can pick how we're going to run it.
Councillor Lewis?
I agree. I think it should be run by SDNG with a joint committee, because each municipality, they have their own, I'll say, pet peeves on garbage. Where we're having an issue with our garbage or landfill, maybe North Glengarry has something completely different. So I think that the 6 municipalities would work better if they had a joint committee, and that way everybody can bring up their issues of their landfill. Thank you.
Since you mentioned North Glengarry, they are unique. They have their own waste management site within their municipality that they run, and lose their shirts on it. Oh, they want to dump it bad, so so careful what you ask for. Councillor Mellon?
Who should lead the coordination of a collaboration efforts? I think, for now, until we find out who's interested, who's on board, I think an SDNG thing, until it gets sorted out, and at that point, 2 or 3 may say, no, we're not interested, and then, it'll have to go to a committee or board or whatever. I think we need some staff or whoever with the expertise to sit in on this. Like, no offense to our county council counselors, but I think we need, somebody either from the counties or from, that has the expertise to help guide an SDNG-led initiative, 1 member from each municipality, mayor, deputy mayor, or whoever, appointee, at least, be a representative there from each. So yeah, I think it has to be right now you know, we got a long ways to go before we're gonna get to, you know, where we need to go, and we may wanna whittle it down, but SD&G led right now, I think.
Okay. I agree with the SDG, but I think we also have to bring City of Cornwall in. That they have some quantity there to work with, and sometimes you need the quantity to bring the private people in to make it worth their while. I'm not saying that it should be just a committee of Cannon councillors either. It should be a committee of whoever the strongest person is within each municipality that feels that they have a passion for waste management and how to look at it in a future scope looking type of way. And even having some lay people coming on that have expertise, certainly have to lean on staff and consultants to guide you in with the ideas, because if the committee comes up with a group of ideas that sounds good to them, but all of a sudden, you know, the cost implications or the possibilities of them are not realistic, then that spins a lot of wheels for a lot longer than they need to be spun. So that's where I would go with that currently. Last question, does your municipality have any other unique items or issues that need to be considered within the analysis of the collaboration opportunities? Now I'm going to turn that to Shannon and say, do you see something that we need to know that hasn't been addressed? And the report that Derek has put together does have a lot of numbers in it. If you ever get the full report, and you can actually maybe send it back to council if you can find that.
Yep.
Including future projections. So, you know, that's been a number of months since we've had that. But what are, you know?
Yeah, if I'm looking at other opportunities, is, you know, or unique ones, is, you know, if the recycling does not go through in 2025, where it's the responsibility of the businesses, you know, what's that going to look like for municipalities, right? But I think a lot of it is covered in that report, phase 1 and phase 2. And to the mayor's point, is phase 1 and phase 2 was more of gathering all the information from all the lower tiers to get an understanding of where everybody is. They provide different service levels. There's costing. I think we're probably the only municipality that probably has the more current closure cost than other municipalities. So I think it's all covered in there. So you know, to answer number 4, I think everything's covered in there. I don't see anything that kind of jumps out. I think it goes back to the deputy mayor of, you know, any other creative or innovative opportunities, I think, is what this council is looking for as well.
Okay, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, it just comes down to me, it's, for me, we need to leverage if there's any diversion. I mean, we're on kind of the cliff with our landfill, and it's diversion is really what we need, so.
Councilor Wells? Councilor Wells?
Time is our friend or enemy. That's about the only issue, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else anybody wants to add on to this? Anything?
Just the other thing I will add is to Councillor Mellon is, you know, when we did have a discussion with internally with staff and Derek from DFA, we did talk about you know, the likelihood of that we won't get everybody to buy in to this type of model, but there might be some opportunities for collaborations with North Dundas and South Dundas, or South Dundas and South Stormont. So even though we don't get everybody that buys in, there could be some opportunities that come out of it that we can still find some cost savings and some efficiencies just by working with your neighbors too.
And things change. Be prepared for change.
Correct.
North Glengarry, they operate what they call RAVE. It's a recycling depot that when recyclables were worth something, they actually made money, and they were getting a lot coming in, and all of a sudden that whole marketplace dried up and diversion wasn't happening, and they're spending millions of dollars keeping it alive right now. So they don't know what to do. They're in that quandary of they shut it down or they keep it going, or but they were ready to dump it that night. We had the full consultation online, so I don't blame them either. Okay, so with that, we've had a good discussion on our waste management for going forward, and we've got the roadmap started. Hopefully we'll get more information and we'll continue on where we're gonna go 6 months and 12 months down the road. Last item on the discussion items, the key information report on the Canada Community Revitalization Fund. Kaylin?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Making sure that you guys can hear me and that everybody else can hear me. So we just need some direction on which project you guys would like to apply for. The fund deadline is coming up, and one thing that the report doesn't mention, which I will note, is that the funding provides up to 75% of the project costs. This makes option 1 and 3 a little bit more viable because they are budgeted, if I recall. And the projects that were chosen were based on the eligibility, but also the fund has provided a priorities list. And these projects meet a lot of those priorities, especially given that we're a smaller community. And so the price range of those projects are more viable than going for something that would be quite large, because we're not partnering, because we're by ourselves. So they're gonna prioritize partner projects, and because we don't have one of those at this time, we want to go for a smaller budgeted, because then we do meet the other priorities even though we don't meet that one. So just looking for some direction about which you'd like to apply for. We'll bring a resolution back to council at the regular council meeting, but this allows us to start the application and have it done in time for the 23rd. I can answer any questions about the fund that you have.
Okay, so question before we start. Is there a funding envelope or limit or gap, or is there certain envelopes for certain projects? Like I see, like projects that fall under 500,000. Are there bigger, smaller, like?
Yes, so the funding request can be up to 750,000, but requests for funds under 500,000 are given priority. And again, because this is a national funding opportunity, because we're so small, we want to look at smaller projects to give us a better chance of actually getting approved for it. Based on the grants that I've done before, I can't say with any confidence that we would even have a chance at the funding if we went on a larger scale for a larger project.
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
A couple of questions. Arena accessibility, was it considered? Did you have a discussion about those stairs that are going to hang around our neck for the rest of the whatever? Does it fall under here?
We did consider it, but it's not shovel ready. So that's one of the main priorities of the fund, is that they want shovel ready projects so that they can get them done and benefiting Canadians as soon as possible.
Okay. I looked at it. I tend to, 3, I don't quite understand, only because we've got the Trillium grant.
Yep.
And then we've got some money that the Waterfront Committee has set aside. So when you're talking about the expansion, are you talking about basically moving that project forward like 4 years and doing everything that they've wanted to do in the waterfront plan, or are you just talking like what are you covering?
Yes, so the Waterfront Committee has the $55,000.
Yep.
So we would if we got the funding for this would allow them to not have to spend that on the extra,
Infield pathways.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they could put that towards their other projects and their other goals for the future.
Okay.
But like I said, it's only 75% of the project that we could get, so some of that funding that they do have would still go towards this.
Okay. And the waterfront, the Morseburg waterfront washrooms, what's the bill on that we know of? You're saying around 30,000?
So I was talking to David, and so we budgeted, I think it's $10,000 for the dock washrooms this year. The Beach washrooms weren't budgeted for, but the idea with this project is that we could make it a waterfront washroom project and get them all done, which is why we've done that $30,000, because the expectation is that the beach washrooms will be more expensive. But we're not totally sure on how much it'll be. If we get council's approval to move forward with that project, we'll have a better idea of how much it'll cost, but that's sort of a close guesstimate.
Okay, because I know there's been some feedback about those accessibility, and I know way back when we did the tour of Matilda and saw the potential for washrooms and stuff. What do our bookings look like for Matilda Hall after? Are people even coming to us to book it for future events?
So, prior to COVID, between the Civic Center and Matilda Hall would be our busiest buildings. Not only did we have events going on in Matilda, but there was some recreation programming that was going on, and there was some other, like euchre and stuff like that. So right now, I can't honestly tell you how, with Stage 3 coming this Friday, what that might look like for rentals.
Yeah, the only reason why I ask is because we always seem to focus on the two villages, and I don't want to forget about the rural residents back there. However, to win the money, you're going to have to justify the quick and fast usage of it, and I think we'd have a better chance justifying the use of you're going to have better numbers to justify the funding if the grant is to. It seems where it's leaned to that quick impact kind of thing. So normally, if we didn't have the pandemic, I'd like to get Matilda going, but I think you may have challenges with the competition, and it is a competition for funding. With the competition, just the numbers, you're going to want to justify big numbers, and I think you've got bigger numbers to go after the money for the two Morseburg projects. So. And I'm okay with either one of them, to be honest with you. I think if you help out the pathway expansion, then maybe the waterfront committee will decide to help out with washrooms, because we get some feedback about the accessibility. So just my 2 cents, Mayor.
Councilor Wells?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. If with the waterfront, since the petroleum grant is good, we already budget for the waterfront committee to do that, so they have a plan, and sure, this would be nice to move things forward a bit, but I know the waterfront bathrooms, and I haven't been in them the last couple of years, but they're in need, like they need to be done. So I would lean towards option 2 and maybe make it, like you said, the whole package, like the beach and the waterfront one up here, that we get them both done, because I think that is, they all, well, except for option 3, but option 1, even though the bathrooms need to be updated there, they're still accessible, like they can be used. It's not like they can't. So I would put the applications towards option 2 and make a combined thing that we get both those washrooms done, because I think that's on top of my list what I would pick. Thank you.
Councilor Lewis?
Well, my way of thinking is a little bit different than everybody else's. I would go with option 1. We talked about Matilda accessibility washrooms ever since this council has been elected. And it's always been put on the back burner. Matilda Hall, I know COVID didn't help us, but when COVID wasn't here, Matilda Hall was a very busy building of ours. And the washrooms, they are getting downgraded and downgraded fast. I know of all the years that I was on recreation, yeah, a paint job here, a paint job there. We changed the toilets and the sinks, but those stalls, they gotta go. So my option would be option one. I'm not saying the other two does not deserve it, but I think option one is my say.
Council Mellon, are you option one? You all right, read your mind? Do I know you well enough now?
Option one, let's face it, I gotta agree with Councilor Lewis. It's been on the books forever to get those washrooms upgraded. Option two, great project, yeah. But, at least with option one, and you're right, it hasn't been used for a year and a half. Nobody has, nothing has. But, the fact of the matter is, when things open up, we have a large facility, the only large facility in our municipality that can handle that type of numbers, that type of crowds. It's a year-round facility, so it's not weather-related, it's not, worried about, winter time being, nobody, using it, with the washrooms at the dock or whatever. So, I'm definitely option one here by us. Surprise.
I'm not surprised. That's okay. But both of you two have made very good arguments over Matilda Hall, and they're all good projects. To be honest, we dream small, and the reason I say we dream small is that North Dundas is getting $1.7 million of either grant or themselves to fix up recreation in Hallville. Mm-hmm. Now I know Hallville is a growing community, but it isn't that big a community, and they're going to spend that kind of coin because they went and were ready to do that. And I think there's projects that have been sitting on the back burner in South Dundas, and we just, it'd be nice to do it. But trouble is, we're never ready for those projects, and that costs money to get ready. And the one that comes to my mind every time is a facility at the Morrisburg waterfront that was part of the I wouldn't say dream, but some of the consultations of restaurant, historic museum, good washrooms, the whole 9 yards. Those things don't happen without somebody else throwing a lot of coin on the table. And these are the funding opportunities we have missed because we haven't spent the $50,000 to say we were ready to roll. And that's something we need to keep in mind when we start looking down the road at projects. So circling back to these three, the Matilda washrooms have been on the list way too long. They were on the list when I was mayor the first time. The mayor that was elected after that said she was going to get them fixed up, and apparently they didn't get fixed up. They might have get painted, but they have never been upgraded. And, Council Wells knows what I'm going to say about the urinals there, and, it's time to upgrade that whole mess. And with somebody else's money, we can do a real good project of it instead of just doing a patchwork or something that doesn't work as well as it could. So I think if you're going to ask me on them, and as I said, we need better washrooms here. We need to find our own money to figure that one out. We have $50,000 for the pathways. I think let's spend it and be done with it. I think the committee's good on that. But Matilda, the washrooms, and we need to do something. And that hall will open up someday. It's big enough that even running at 50% capacity, we can do something in it. And we have to think a little bit positive on where we're all going to land up in a year or two on this the pandemic. I hope we get better. None of us are going to be able to want to live this way going forward. Councilor Wells.
Yeah, I see the way this is going to end up, but I just have one comment. As much as Matilda needs to be done, we've sat here as a council and committees about tourism and we got all these signs up to bring people down here, and it's getting away from the bathrooms. And I know the mall thing is up to the BIA. That's, if I was a tourist coming here and pull in that Morseburg Mall, I sit there and say, that's just a disgrace. You go there, you got a bunch of dead trees, you got weeds all through the curbs there and everything. And like I said, I haven't been in these bathrooms the last 2 years. Last time I put a roof down on the one, we were in there. And they're beyond Matilda. And like, we're sitting here, we're all promoting tourism and we're bringing people here. And sure, like, not saying Matilda doesn't need it. It does. But it is accessible. It's not that it's not accessible. It's just, it's like having an old kitchen. It still works, but you just want to beautify it because everything's accessible. We got the new ramp there to get in the building. The doors are all legal. But as far as looks and what I think for free money to get these done right away, it'll add to the whole picture because we're getting our new parkways, we're gonna have new bathrooms and everything here. So, but anyways, I'm just making a comment. I think they all have to be done, but as far as things starting to open up now, and people will be using our facilities like that, and you go in there, it's just like going in behind a building to do your stuff, I think. That's just my comment.
I think all three are very worthwhile projects. With Matilda though, can we get letters of support though from some of the groups that use it? Because that was my original commentary, and I've heard what my colleagues have said as far as us putting it off and not getting it done, but my comments were strictly around what the background is for the funding envelope and whether or not, because I hate losing, whether or not we're able to put a project that will be competitive against other projects. And I worry with Matilda only because we don't have community partners where you could potentially, for the waterfront, probably have the Morseburg Lions that have put money in, you know what I mean? Like, you've got community, you could have the surge justify the bathroom, like you've got those to make the application more competitive. That's my concern. I think they're all worthwhile. I think it's awesome, and I hate putting off something, but with Matilda, are we able to get partnership, some letters of support that will say that it's not just the municipality that's applying for it? Because if you put that project application against the bathroom application, this is what I'm looking at, not merit of these projects, because I think they all have merit, but if you put the application against each other, I think you've got more partnerships with the waterfront bathroom than you do, and they said that's what they're looking at. So that's my concern. It's not based on merit, but it's definitely based on the strength of the application. So that's what I worry about.
Okay. You both make good points. However, so if we went down that road, could this council commit 110% to fix Matilda Hall next year with our own dollars? It's got to be done. We can't go budget time and say, oh, we don't want to spend $50,000 to do the washrooms, and we're going to do it right, not do a mediocre job. Like, you're right. If you want tourism in South Dundas, as much as South Dundas is all tourism, we have a jewel down here that we have to kind of respect and work with. And the only challenge I have with spending a significant amount of dollars on the washrooms here is that defeats the purpose of where I want to go, and that's take the dockside out of there and the washrooms out of there and build the right kind of building. But that's not going to happen in my term of council, this term, that's for sure. We're not ready for it. The next one can vision it and see where it goes. But if we're not going to do Matilda, I want a commitment by this council that come budget time, hell or high water, we're going to do it. No matter where we find the money. Would that be fair? I'm going to go to those two.
I'm sticking with option one for
Okay.
the simple reason we have talked about renovating Matilda Hall washrooms when I was a director of recreation. I have now been a counselor for going on 3 years, and there hasn't been a damn thing done to those washrooms.
No.
I'm not saying that the other two projects aren't a good project. I'm not saying that. But I think when people walk in to those washrooms at Matilda Hall, it is a disgrace to this council for having them in that condition that they are in. I am sticking with option one, and that's the end of the story from me.
The only way I would venture away from my decision is, you're right, Mayor Byvelds, we could sit here and say we'll make a commitment. I'd say we'll make a pre-allocated 2022 budget right now. We'll do both of them, but we allocate from the budget. Because you know as well as I do, I'm as guilty as anybody. We sit around the budget table and we're looking to try and save dollars and cents, and Matilda gets pushed, or any project gets pushed back. So if we're not gonna do Matilda with the funding envelope, then pre-allocate a 2022 budget dollar right now, take another working reserves, replace it at budget time. That's the only way I would go with doing that option. Using the funding for here, and, I know what, that makes that commitment firm. We're tied to it.
Okay, so currently, we have nothing budgeted for Matilda. Do we have budgeted money for the washrooms in Morrisburg?
We've got accessibility under the accessibility fund, we've got some funds set aside.
I see $10,000 for dock washrooms budgeted.
I think so, that's what we had. Yeah. And
Was that enough money to do what we needed to do to finish
just
off?
to do that the one building we were talking about, but this application does both.
Both.
Yeah.
Well, I think if we want tourism in South Dundas, which brings dollars to the municipality, we're gonna have to spend that ourselves. I'm gonna agree with my two colleagues and do the Matilda Hall one. It's been too long. It's gotta go. And if we don't get the money, we're gonna do it next year. Simple as that. It has to be done. We'll find the money. We spent $750,000 in Iroquois for a 3-season building of $350,000 that came out of this pocket, and we can't fix up Matilda Hall. We got a problem. End of discussion.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know about 750,000, but anyways, I do know
Time all the costs are in and staff time is probably more.
when it comes down to these bathrooms, we're gonna find the money, don't matter where we find it, Mayor. But at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure, and I agree with Deputy Mayor about how strong that application is gonna be. We're gonna be paying both out of our pocket. And you mark my words right now. If we go that route and not take the tourism one, because they're really giving back to tourism right now, the government's throwing money away for that, and you're good at getting the money, or you go to something that is one of our 29 buildings that all of them needs attention. They all been neglected. Like there should, if it was run right and it was put in there, you have a reserve for your buildings, and as simple as going, okay, we know we need the bathrooms. No other council or even this one, we haven't said, okay, just put it there, do the job, get it done. But no, every time, everything goes on the back burner. And not just with us, with every other council. There's nothing set aside. But here we're taking an opportunity where we're getting money, where we can fix 2 of our buildings. And like I said, mark my word on record, that if we go the other way, we're gonna be paying both ourselves at the end of the day. And I just wanna make that clear.
So I'm gonna ask staff, from your read of the application and its objectives, if you had to pick one that would work the best.
You become the mayor now.
Because there's good points made. There's nothing worse than, well, that's what we wanted, but we put it in and the powers that be look at it and say, does it meet our objectives? keep in mind, we are not in a liberal riding, and I don't care what anybody says, that's just the way the politics work. In your professional opinion, knowing how grants get wrote and looked at, what fits the guidelines the best? Hate to put you on the spot, but that's what you get. That's we need that information.
Right. Well, our manager of buildings would prefer Matilda. I know that much. From an application standpoint, it's probably the beaches.
It's probably the what, sorry?
The beaches,
Bathrooms.
yeah.
We absolutely can only put in one application, does it say that?
Just one application, correct, Galen?
Yeah.
Does it say that, or we're assuming that?
Yeah, say that, it says that in the application, right?
Okay.
Okay. So we've had enough debate, I think. I think we've had enough information put in. Option 3 is off the table, agreed,
Yep.
which is the bath. We got money for that anyway. Those 1 or 2.
I still say 2, based on the application though. It's based on
1 or
getting that
2?
money, 2.
2.
Oh,
You knew it was gonna end up like that, but anyways.
yeah, here we go again. Well, I want the money. There's-
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
I think we have to respect that initiative. If we get the money, the 10,000 will not disappear. That'll go into rec reserve, and that's the 10,000 seed money for
Yeah.
Matilda. Because
Yeah.
next year, Matilda's gonna be on the list no matter what. And I'm gonna hold this council to do it, because the mayor will go nuts if you can't get that done. Because it's been way too long, and you guarantee that whoever's sitting in Matilda Hall in October is gonna get challenged. Look at that, we got crummy washrooms that nobody's done for how many terms of council? Like, to me, it's been 3. First term, it was okay yet, but after that, it started falling downhill in a hurry. So, I think from a guideline point of view and an objective of the grant, we gotta do the Morseburg project because of that. But I wanna make sure that the people know that we're gonna do Matilda Hall no matter what. And to be honest, this needs to be done faster because we still can operate this. We can't operate Matilda Hall, I wouldn't say in the foreseeable future, but it'll probably be next year before we get even close to any kind of capacity that makes any sense to make that hall work, so.
I'll commit to that.
We good with that?
I will hold you to your word.
You damn right. Well, I got 3 votes, so we're good.
No, I mean,
How's that?
Matilda Hall.
No. So
If it-
you can tell the treasurer that has to be on
Yep,
the list.
I've already made a note on it.
And the manager. I
Yep.
know.
Start saving money.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going with option 2. You can bring the resolution to council next week and we'll pass it in theory. Now, Deputy Mayor Gardner's not here, but I think we made the debate and it should just roll through because that's the way we have to do it.
And
Anything further?
yeah, and the whole point of bringing it today was to allow Kaylin time to, as she said, the deadline is July 23rd. So bringing it back on the 19th wouldn't have given her much time to start that application process. So we'll look at getting that application going now, and we'll get some letters of support from some of our key stakeholders that are down at the waterfront, and we'll submit that application.
Okay, make sure that our MP is fully aware of the project. This is just federal dollars?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I kind of read on it too. Okay, anything further from any member of council? Okay, that was a good debate. I know it's challenging, but that's what we have to try to do our best for everybody in South Dundas. Anything further from council or staff or council on
That's-
any agenda items?
No, that's everything.
Okay, can I have a resolution to close the meeting, please?
Yeah, moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, seconded by Councillor Wells, that council now adjourn to meet again at the call of the chair.
Okay, so Before I ask for a vote on that, I'd like to thank council for their participation today. A lot of important subjects we did, and I think being back in chambers to do those decisions helps a lot. I'd like to thank staff for their input, and thank the consultants for their input, and thank the audience for watching council meeting this morning. All heard the motion, those in favor?